and our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
On with the new flesh.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Dayo Horror Hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm your host with the most, Rowan.
I'm a dusty skeleton key, Mike.
And last but not least, it's Colton.
And we are Jill-less today, so you know what that means, fellas. And this is exactly where I'll just drop the boys tag that we're none of us are hearing right now. So
how dare you? I'm like waiting for you to actually say it.
Oh yeah, the boys.
The boys.
There we go. Let's get the energy up.
Yeah, so no Jill, but that's okay. We don't need to kick off April Ghouls month with her. She can be left out.
To be fair, she wanted us to wait until she was
Yeah.
done at WrestleMania to record this episode. We're like, we're not waiting for you if you're just going to be a dirtbag. So, we decided to record anyways.
You have to choose WrestleMania or Beetlejuice.
That's right.
And she
you
made
chose
her
wrong.
choice.
You chose wrong. But luckily, she'll be back for the next one. So, hopefully she doesn't choose wrong then. But we know where we're going to start off with. We're going to start off with what we've been consuming, what we've been watching, what we've been reading, what we've been listening to. Just what have you been up to? Colton, we'll start with you.
I'm like literally the worst person to start with this week. I've been busy gearing back up for work. So basically, I've just been taking a bunch of emails and phone calls and answering texts and a few meetings here and there. And essentially just dreading from that next week until mid-November. I'm just going to be back to pulling 70-hour weeks again and having no time for myself other than on the weekend. So I feel like burnt out already, and I haven't actually started yet. So that's not really a good sign. So when I have had some downtime, I've just kind of been taking it easy, mostly just plodding through the very good but very janky Dragon's Dogma 2. In addition to that, I checked out Late Night with the Devil and The First Omen, which we have, now slaying reviews up on the channel. I would say both of them were pretty good. You should definitely check out the reviews and see if you should, head to theaters, throw some money their way. Other than that, a couple buddies dragged me to go see Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire, or Godzilla Kong, the New Empire, whatever you want to call it. And I very much didn't enjoy the movie. I don't know why they keep repeating the same mistake of the previous ones, where they're like, we're going to make a 2-hour-long movie. 90 minutes of it is just going to be like humans talking and like not the Godzilla or Kong. And then, you got a half hour of kind of what you signed up for. Rowan, you also saw this one, right? What'd you think?
I'm kind of the same as you, where, we came to see Godzilla and Kong. We were promised like a team up of the ages.
Haven't they teamed up like 8 times already?
Well,
probably.
There's
like 60 or 70
each
movies.
other. Or I guess they kind of teamed up towards the end, I feel. Of the
against
last one.
Mechagodzilla. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know. This is just one of those things, almost like a Marvel movie at this point now, where it's like, even though it's not great, I'm just like, whatever. Like, I guess you got to watch Godzilla suplex someone, so
that is in there, yeah.
I never thought I'd see that in a movie. You know what? I feel like they kind of fulfilled their promise somewhat. You got to see these two things fight together, and there you go. That's the movie. So,
well, yeah, you got to see it within the last 5 to 10 minutes of a 2-hour-long movie. So,
yeah,
hopefully that was well worth your time investment. For me, I was just like, I wish I could be like anywhere else rather than watching this. I thought it was probably the worst one out of all the new movies. Although I really didn't like Godzilla King of the Monsters either, which I know like some people do actually enjoy.
I think the Godzilla versus King Kong was like far superior than this one.
Yes, for sure. That's why I'm saying this is like probably the worst one.
I'm all for Rebecca Hall and Dan Stevenson, whatever.
Dan Stevens. Yeah.
Dan Stevens. I'm all for them to get those paychecks. And Dan Stevens was like the best part of it, I thought.
Yeah, sure, but then once again, why are we watching a movie called Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire if Dan Stevens as a quirky like dentist is the best part of the movie, right?
Who's Australian. They never let this guy just be his own like British self.
Oh, I didn't even know if it was Australian or like New Zealand. Like it seemed like he had a little bit of like the Kiwi like Taika Waititi sort of vibe to his character. But yeah, anyway, I can't talk about the movie without just like spoiling all the stupidity in it, so just trust me that it's really dumb, and if you're looking for that, maybe you'll enjoy it. I hated it. And in addition to that, the other thing I watched was Dev Patel's directorial debut, Monkey Man. Did you see that afterwards, Rowan?
No, I didn't.
No.
I was kind of interested in it, and then I might still go see it. I just didn't have time.
Yeah, for me, it's the sort of thing where I feel like his reach exceeded his grasp. Like, obviously, he wants to make this kind of like quasi-violent, action movie, right? Kind of something similar in vein to like The Raid or, maybe John Wick with less guns. But realistically, like the movie winds up obviously having like a couple of good action scenes probably within the first 30 minutes. There's like one good action sequence, I would say. And then it's like 40 minutes of a training arc because obviously this movie is like a revenge, action movie. And then it's like the last like 15 minutes, there's a couple more action scenes. And for me, it's like some of the stuff that was happening in those scenes was interesting. It was just all like really shaky cam and over edited. And for whatever reason, like the character motivation is essentially like taking revenge for like the death of his mother. And for some reason, it's like, it's not good enough just to show that in a flashback. It's like, we need to like have, a 10 or 15 minute scene, like showing this in detail and flashbacks all throughout the movie. I just felt like he was kind of in love with the footage he shot for the movie. And then he was like, you know what? I need to make sure a snippet of every single thing I shot makes it into this movie. So it just winds up being really frenetic and kind of chaotic. And I don't know, like what I go for, John Wick, it's like, even if I'm not there for just like the action stuff, it's like the amazing cinematography and the fight choreography. This one was filmed so poorly that I couldn't really take in the choreography, and the cinematography wasn't that great. So,
somebody online that I really like, I can't remember who it was, but I remember thinking like, when I saw the trailer, like, oh, interesting, this is not what I would have expected. And then like a few days ago, I remember somebody saying like, they were like kind of angry. They were like, you clearly hate this type of movie, so why the fuck did you make one?
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, okay, that's a take. So maybe that, like, it's kind of like if you don't like horror movies and you make a horror movie, you know what I mean? Like, that sort of, I'm better than what I'm making. Like, this is not what, I don't know.
Exactly. So the movie's marketed, like, you watch the trailer, it looks like it's going to be this, like, gory, bloody,
it
like, over-the-top
looks
action.
Like you said, when you were saying that, I was like, it looks like The Raid, and I love that movie. So I was like, oh my God, yes,
it's no Raid. No, this movie should be 85 minutes long, tops, and it should be way more like action loaded. It's literally, like I said, like he is a cage fighter, so it's like technically I'd say maybe like the first scene of the movie might involve a couple of punches, but then it's like, probably 25, 30 minutes, an action sequence, and then once again, it's like a bunch of flashbacks and like building the character up from nothing again and showing where they came from, and it's literally just becomes like a completely different movie for like 40 minutes, and then there's an action scene at the end again. So it's just like, I kind of agree with that review where it's like The Raid very much knew what it was making, and like, obviously there's moments in The Raid where we like calm down for, 5 minutes before there's another fight, but there's not a section in The Raid 1 at least where it's like, we're gonna calm down for 40 minutes and grind everything to a halt.
Yeah, and they're not like saying in the like promotional materials like, oh, this is actually like so much better than other action movies. Like, it's not an action movie. How dare you say that? You know what I mean? It's like,
oh God, I never even knew. But yeah, if he was saying that sort of stuff too, it's just like, yeah, why did you choose to make this? I mean, you know, you're like biting off someone's nose in the middle of like a combo punch, right? Like, so it's like you're trying to make one of these like, I guess, ultra violent action movies.
If you want to get shredded, just get shredded. Like,
exactly. You never had to get paid to do that, but yeah, it just, I don't know. It wasn't really my thing. I thought it was quite mediocre overall. Obviously, I'm kind of in the minority on it. Lots of people on Letterboxd have been saying it's great. So I don't know. Maybe you'll enjoy it, but I think it's a pretty bad sign when I'm basically falling asleep in the middle of this so-called action movie. So yeah, it just wasn't for me. Mike, what have you been consuming? That's basically all I had time to, look at this week.
Okay, well, first of all, I wanted to ask you, how is Dragon's dildo? How is Dragon's dildo?
Oh no, Dragon's dildo. I don't know about those, but Dragon's Dogma 2 is it's good. It's just really janky.
You
it's
said
one
it was
of those...
janky. I mean, I don't have I cannot afford to buy it right now, but I'm like, oh my god, I keep seeing people posting their characters and stuff, and I'm like, I kind of want to play this game, but
so the character creator is excellent. I probably spent 3 hours designing essentially a Joel and an Ellie, because in this game you also have to design
you have your
pawn, your
pawn,
partner, that comes along with you the entire game, and then also they go to other worlds and fight on your behalf and do
other
quests
people.
and stuff.
Yeah.
So the game in that regard is fun. It's just, it very much feels like a game from 2009 with modern combat. So it's literally obviously there's no fast travel.
Old school,
yeah. Like an old school RPG where there's no fast travel really. It'll do things like, I gotta broker a peace with the elves, so it's I need to bring a dwarven dish to the elves spot, which is super north of the map, and then it's I gotta do the reverse and bring an elven dish to the dwarves, and you gotta be walking slowly back and forth, and each round trip is 40 minutes or something, just very slow going. And then it's the game doesn't really give you much direction in the way of quest. It's you'll run into someone and they'll be my child went missing the other day when he was at the river to the east of here. Could you go look for him? And then it's all right, I guess I'll go check out a river east of here and walk up and down it looking for a cave or for a blood trail or something. So a lot of it is fun because it winds up feeling I guess almost like a tabletop campaign to some degree, where it's just very much there's a bunch of different outcomes to all the different quests, and they don't really direct you much. And you can very quickly change up your play styles on the fly and all the combat and stuff. It's just, for me, now that I'm probably 30, 40 hours into it overall, it's very much that grind of trekking across the map. Sometimes you can teleport, or sometimes you can take an ox cart, but by and large you're trying to save on your resources quite often. It just winds up being I gotta walk 30 minutes.
Yeah, because you have to spend something, don't you?
Yeah, you gotta spend.
That's what I heard,
yeah. It's like a rare item essentially. Throughout the whole game so far, I found probably 15. Right, and once again, I'm 30 to 40 hours in, so it's it's not.
That's a lot. That's a lot of playtime.
Yeah, you can't be teleporting all over the place all the time, right? You kind of got to choose when you want to do it. So yeah, to walk 30 minutes to talk to somebody, and then turn around and I walk the 30 minutes back, and then spend 5 minutes manually taking everything out of your inventory and divvying it up between all the characters and all this stuff. It's just, there's a lot of just downtime, and kind of I feel the game's almost pushing back at you to kind of enjoy it, but that's also kind of what you're playing it for. You kind of want this old janky experience that's feels archaic in a certain way, but also it's kind of interesting, right? It does feel unlike probably anything else I've played recently, but it's also okay, now that I'm this far in the game, there is a way, a reason why we modernized some of it from 15 years ago or whatever, right? So
although I will say, I also heard you can't scum save, which is a big no-no for me. I'm no, I literally, my PS3, for example, I got to a point where I couldn't put anything else on it, and I was deleting all the games and still not having enough room to put a new one on there, and then I realized that the 84 saves I had for Skyrim were taking up my entire hard drive, and that's the type of person I am. A Bethesda game, give me Skyrim, give me any of it, I'm literally saving every 30 before I do anything. It's crouching around, and then I'm oh, there's a person there. Do I talk to them or kill them? And then I save, and then talk to them, and then I save again.
Yeah, no, you can't do that, and the game just kind of auto-saves, just all the time anyways. For example, I had a quest where there was a sculptor, and he wanted to sculpt this beautiful griffin. So he's hey, there's a griffin near here, meet me there. And essentially he says
Peter or Meg?
Neither of them, just the mythological griffin. Okay, that'd be great. But yeah, essentially he's if you're gonna do this, you should have a spell that could petrify them or freeze them in place so I can get a better view of the griffin. Or you got to fight him for a long time. So I was just I'll go fight this guy for 5-10 minutes, whatever. And I go up to the griffin, and I'm fighting him for probably 30 seconds, and then he just flies off. And I'm all right, well, my quest is probably ruined now. So I go talk to the guy, and he's well, I didn't really get a good look at the griffin, but maybe I can sketch the broad solid shapes or whatnot. And essentially, there's no way for me to like reload or redo that.
Yeah.
I bring the quest to like its ultimate conclusion, and essentially his griffin just looks like a piece of shit, and the noblemans that like paid for it are like all angry, and I get a shitty reward, and it's just like, well, that's it. I just fucked up.
And
like
it's
this
not
guy.
your fault. Like
No, it was just like the griffin flew off for some reason, and I don't know if that's coded in there, like if you don't freeze him, that he's gonna fly off in 30 seconds. But yeah, I was just completely screwed and like never got a good reward or anything, right? So it's one of those games
what I'm
where,
hearing is I have to face the consequences of my actions.
You do.
So I will not be playing it. I do not like facing the consequences of my actions.
Yeah, and like there's numerous things that are just like you'll spend 5 minutes fighting a monster, you'll kill it, you'll waste all these resources, and he'll fall over, but like his arm will slightly clip into the world. So then they'll not let you loot him because technically he's not in the world anymore. He's like clipped out of bounds or something.
God.
So like the game basically doesn't care. Yeah, it doesn't care that you're playing it. Like the whole point of the game is you're supposed to be like the chosen one, but I think you're basically the chosen one in a world that like doesn't give a shit that you're the chosen one. Like
you're chosen for what though?
Yeah, so it's a vibe. I've been enjoying it, and like my friends and I, when we've been kind of like talking in the DMs about it and whatnot, like we all had pretty different experiences, and there's multiple quests that I've done that they missed. So it is like a unique experience that I've seen. It's janky and archaic, and I don't think I'll have time to really put much more into it. After this, I don't think I'm gonna have time to trek across this fantastical world for 40 minutes next week.
Fair.
So yeah, that's it. But yeah, that's the scoop on Dragon's Dogma.
Thank you. I just needed to get the scoop on that because
hopefully our listeners cared about Dragon's Dogma, or Rowan can just cut all that out. So.
I like to think that there's a lot of gamers in our
I'm sure
sphere.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have also been playing games, and they have been Overwatch, and Fortnite. So.
Okay.
Literally things where I'm making no progress whatsoever, only through battle passes. And I was grinding Fortnite because they put out the Lady Gaga event, and I had enough V-Bucks in the game to buy the Lady Gaga skin, but not the Lady Gaga and Ariana Rain on Me emote. And I have all the Ariana skins, so I was like, I can't not have this emote, but I also didn't want to spend any more real ass money on the game, so I needed 100 V-Bucks to get the emote.
Okay.
But I also stopped paying for the battle passes, so I had to grind up through 40 levels of the battle pass until they gave you 100 free V-Bucks. So I could buy this
and how long
emote,
did that take?
Because weeks. It literally took the last 3 weeks.
Oh my god. Okay.
Literally,
Jeez.
Just for 100 V-Bucks, I should have just thrown it on my credit card and just said fuck it. But I got it, so we're all good.
I love that Mike's gaming habits are just that of a 13-year-old.
Oh my god, get fucked.
Just Fortnite and Overwatch.
I can't get mom's credit card to get the V-Bucks, so I just gotta grind for 3 weeks.
No, but I'm an adult because I'm saying I'm not just gonna willy-nilly throw V-Bucks purchases on my fucking credit card and then next month go, oh shit, I spent $70 on video games on cosmetics. Because I do that. I've done that. That's just the way it is. Anyway, yeah, so that's been my gaming for the last few weeks. TV-wise, I, of course, have been watching Drag Race because we're getting near the end of the current season. I have many thoughts on it, which I won't go into here, but some of them are good and some of them are not so good. But it's been a journey. This has been a Drag Race journey this season. So and speaking of TV, but also going into reading, I've been getting back into my girl of all my life, Patricia Highsmith. I'm going to I've been rereading some of her short stories, and I'm about to reread the Ripley series because, of course, as a lot of people know, Netflix just put out the new Ripley series, which I've heard mixed things about. So we'll see. I'm still going to watch it, but as some people may or may not know, it is both me and Rowan's one of our favorite movies of all time, The Talented Mr. Ripley. 1999, Jude Law. Ro, did that not, change you internally and externally?
I don't want to ruin your whole shtick here. I've never seen it.
Girl, okay, Ro has been commenting on every post I've ever made about the talented Mr. Ripley for like 10 fucking years. I literally thought it was one of his favorite movies.
He was just ogling Jude Law.
Yeah,
that's what it is. That's what it is.
All
It's usually I'm making a post about Jude Law. Oh my god, bro! You just
I don't think I've
my
seen
shtick.
it. If I have, I don't remember. Like maybe I rented it or something.
You didn't ruin my shtick. You totally changed my perception of you as a person, and I don't think I can look at you the same way anymore.
Well, I'll say that The Talented Mr. Ripley is a great movie. I think I gave it 4 stars, so it's great. Yeah.
Yes. So Ro is just. I thought he was a talented Mr. Ripley.
I've been replaced with Colton, so
loves. It turns out he's just thirsty for Jude Law.
Yeah, I mean that's
Who
just
knew?
basic.
Except me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yes. So that actually explains your blankness when I showed you that book before we started recording. Okay. Cool. So yeah, I am on a Patricia Highsmith kick now because I have like most of her books, and obviously any excuse like something new coming out is like, oh, let's reread her shit. So that's where I am right now, literature wise. And the last couple weeks, I've had a really weird movie journey. So my friend and I had a movie night, and it was actually the night that the Beyonce album came out.
Oh, yeah.
So it was that Thursday night, and like I stayed up until, 3:00 in the morning because I wanted to listen to Beyonce as soon as it came out. And we were like gonna drink and have a movie night, and so we watched The Children's Hour, which is not like usually when this friend and I get together and drink and have a movie night, we watch like some garbage horror, like get drunk, make fun of it, be saucy, like watch like something like Nightmare on Elm Street or whatever, like that's really classic, or just like some shitty like Tubi horror. But no, we put on The Children's Hour, which is like this amazing black and white 1960 like Audrey Hepburn, Shirley MacLaine movie about lesbian allegations at a girls' school. And I knew that. I've read the play and seen the movie before, but like I don't know why we were going through Tubi, and I was like, let's watch this TV movie from like 1990 starring Molly Ringwald, and she's like, no, let's put on The Children's Hour. I'm like, okay.
Nominated for 5 Academy Awards.
Yeah, like
so
it's
definitely not like a garbage movie.
It's like film with a capital F, right? But that's what we decided to watch, and then she fell asleep like before it was even over, and I'm just there drinking by myself waiting for Beyonce to come out. So yeah, Children's Hour, by the way, if you've never seen it, like obviously check it out. It's on actually I think it was on Tubi. Maybe? Yeah, it was definitely on Tubi.
Tubi has a pretty good like classic
Tubi selection
section.
is insane, yeah. Because that's what we were. We were on Tubi because we usually just go through there and find like some cheesy 80s or 90s trash, and I was like, oh, look, there's The Children's Hour. Anyway, so yeah, we rewatched that, and, amazing movie. Weird circumstances to watch it under. I don't advise getting hammered and eating chips and watching it. So then on Good Friday, I was actually off, and I had the weirdest, I was like, I'm gonna, just drink coffee and watch movies all afternoon. And I decided to do the weirdest fucking double feature on Good Friday ever. Yeah. You definitely did see it. Yeah. So instead of watching something like religious or like Jesus themed or like good in any way, I decided that I was going to watch Stripped to Kill and Stripped to Kill 2 Live Girls. Both of them are just about a strip club where all the strippers are getting murdered.
That sounds fantastic.
I think that's like a Lindsay Lohan movie in the mid-2000s.
That is a movie called I Know Who Killed Me. How dare you? I Know Who Killed Me is essentially Strip to Kill Part 3, 20 years later.
All right.
But yeah, so they, I had seen Strip to Kill 2, like in the 90s on video or maybe on like one of the movie channels or something late at night and kind of like didn't really remember it at all. But I was like, oh, there's just like Maria Ford was in it from Slumber Party Massacre 3, and I was like, oh yeah, cool. Anyway, so yeah, I was like, I gotta watch these movies. They were both on, by the way, the totally underrated streaming service. Shout Factory actually has a like free streaming channel.
Yeah, you can get it through Tubi, but
yeah.
But they have their own also, yeah.
They have their own, yeah, and it's like, there's stuff on there that, like, literally I can't find anywhere else, and obviously Strip to Kill 2, for example, being one of them. But yeah, I went on there, and I was just, like, spent, like, a half hour just scrolling through everything, and I was like, oh my god, they have Strip to Kill and Strip to Kill 2. I should totally watch that. And you know what? They were the worst movies ever, especially part 2. Part 2, like, I love Maria Ford. I need to say that. Maria Ford, I love you, but also you're literally like the bottom 5 actors that have ever been filmed. like she cannot act her way out of a wet paper bag. But both of these movies I actually like really enjoyed because they were so cheap and weird that they were actually kind of surreal and trippy. Does that make sense? Like
yeah,
they worked on like a level that I don't think either of the filmmakers intended. Actually, I think it was the same woman that directed both of them. But anyway, I don't think it was intended that way. But yeah, I kind of like look at them as like, these like 2 weird fever dreams. So yeah. Oh, and hilariously, oh my god, I'm looking at my notes now of what I watched, and I realized there is a theme to all my viewings. So the other thing I watched was last weekend. I saw the absolutely glorious, brain-melting, amazing 4K disc of the classic film Paul Verhoeven's Showgirls.
Nice.
So it was like the week.
That.
It was like the week of naked breasts and people at strip clubs. It is phenomenal because I actually watched it with Willow and Trevor, and they had been waiting literally since last fall for a certain Canadian video distributor to send them the 4K disc because it was out of stock. It was on back order. It was apparently on back order for 6 months.
Oh my god!
It finally showed up, and it's like, oh yeah, let's like have a couple bottles of wine and watch it. I'm telling you right now, this movie has always been one of my favorites of all time, but that 4K is like literally, this is cinema. I would put this up there with Orson Welles' whole oeuvre. That's all I'm saying. He could never film breasts like this. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, that was my last couple weeks in a nutshell, Ro. Like, lay it on me. Please tell me you got something better than.
I mean, I don't know if I have
3
anything
movies
better.
about strippers.
I'm almost like Colton. I feel like I've got a couple things I haven't watched a lot because realistically, it seems like every other day I've been recording and editing, like Colton said, with The First Omen and Late Night with the Devil, and me and Jill, before anyone's listening to this, there's going to be a Screams on Patreon and a bunch of that stuff. Yeah, so it's just been hectic. Television-wise, I'm only watching one thing. Colton's favorite television show, Big Brother Canada.
Okay, I'm still watching that as well, but it's not worth discussing on the show.
No, we're caught up, though. Are you caught up?
I am, yeah.
All right, yeah, we're caught up, or at least, I don't know, it's Sunday. I think there's an episode today.
Well, we're going to be a full week behind when people hear this. There'll be like 3 or 4 episodes out. But yeah,
there's like 5 people eliminated.
Yeah,
there's been a bloodbath. Somebody got kicked off and put in jail.
The Newfoundland guy just holding on. But for movies, I've just kind of been catching up on stuff that I didn't see in the theater or I missed. So I finally saw Anyone But You, which I don't know. I didn't find it like egregiously bad.
Wait, is that the Sydney Sweeney movie?
Yeah, I mean,
nice.
You wrote in the group chat, "Is Sydney Sweeney AI?"
Yeah, I mean.
Wait, did we talk about Immaculate last episode?
We did, yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's okay. I'm just making sure.
That's why Rowan watched it. He watched Immaculate, and he's like, damn, this girl got chops. And then he put on Anything But You, and he's like, wait, is she AI?
Wait, replace chops with cha-chas. Like,
it was a Sydney Sweeney performance, I guess. I mean, she was like the main thing wrong with the movie that, like, she just, I don't know if maybe she's not at the level yet, or like, I don't know, maybe she needs some more time as an actor for like this kind of comedy acting, because like most Sydney Sweeney things, like she just seems like she's reading the lines from a giant poster board behind the camera. But Glenn Powell was like very charming, so he's just
okay. But we're all Scream Queen stans, so obviously Chad Radwell we're gonna be into.
Oh. I was gonna say, like, it's just funny to hear Rowan like dunking on Sydney Sweeney so hard when he was praising her up so much
great.
for Immaculate.
She's
like,
great in
like 2
Immaculate.
weeks ago. It's just
she's
wild.
great in Immaculate, and like she's bad in this, but like I thought it was like a charmingly bad performance from her that I was like, oh, whatever. Like, I mean, it's just a rom-com. I'm not going in expecting a lot.
You're not getting good performances.
Well, it is a Shakespeare adaptation, though.
Oh, aren't they all?
Literally, they all are.
Yeah.
Every rom-com is a Shakespeare adaptation.
But you know what? There's a couple times I laughed. Like, I was like, it's fine. It made me laugh, so I was fine with it. I got to finally see Bob Marley, One Love, and unfortunately, that was really, really bad.
Did you expect it to be anything other than awful?
No, I kind of...
Because it looked awful. It looks as awful as the God Rest Her Soul Amy Winehouse movie is going to be.
Honestly, I was expecting Rowan to be the only one to love that movie.
Well, I was a little disappointed just in the fact, because I know it's the same guy that directed King Richard, and I never saw that, but I did watch We Own the City, which is like the HBO miniseries he directed that he created with the guy that wrote The Wire, and I like absolutely loved that show.
I liked King Richard as well. I thought that was a pretty good like sports biopic.
Yeah, so I was a little excited, and like Kingsley Ben-Adir, like I like him as a performer. Like, I think he's great. And I mean, he's probably the best part of the movie. I think he did like a good job kind of losing himself in the role of Bob Marley. It's just the fact that like it started and it's a music biopic. So the first thing I'm thinking about the entire time is Walk Hard. That's all I'm thinking about. Mm-hmm. And it's just, anytime these come out now, I feel like the question on everyone's mind is like, did Walk Hard just destroy this genre of film so that you can never watch it and not think about that? Because it's beat for beat. Every biopic, like, something's going on, then the musician's gonna like reflect on his life, and it was just weird. The music cues were really odd, which like I like Bob Marley's music, but it was like so on the nose that it would be like, him and his partner in a fight, and then she cries, so then they're gonna play No Woman No Cry, and it was just like everything was like on the nose of what.
Like, the needle drops were literally, like, they were literal. It's, like, literal.
There was no subliminal anything in this. Very...
and it's so funny because he actually has a massive catalog. It's like, you could have picked any song.
Yeah, and I mean, they basically just played, like, whatever the obvious songs were to play.
So they went into the Spotify and typed in Bob Marley Woman or Bob Marley, like, whatever piece.
Bob Marley Greatest Hits. They had to make sure it was songs from the album.
Listen, Legend, the Greatest Hits of Bob Marley is fantastic. One of the only acceptable Greatest Hits album.
I just feel like they knew their audience, and they were like, we're gonna capture every like middle-aged white woman that listened to Bob Marley in college, and that
got braids.
Yeah, and I'm sure they probably gave it 5 stars. So I watched that, and then I watched Spaceman, which has been on my list since it came out, and I was just kind of looking for a time to put it on, and I really, really liked it. I thought it was great. I've never read the book, nor have I ever heard of the book. Spaceman of Bohemia. I'm kind of interested in just seeing how it differs from the movie, so I might actually pick it up so I can read it. But yeah, I thought this was like, it was weird, it was cool. Obviously, I always like to see Adam Sandler in like more serious dramatic roles. I usually really like them.
I feel like you had the DVD of Punch Drunk Love.
Another movie I've never seen. Punch Drunk Love. I know, right? Well, you know what it is, though? It's because even though that was like a serious Adam Sandler, I've always been an anti-Adam Sandler guy.
Oh, me too. I can't stand him.
Have you seen Uncut
Well,
Gems?
like, honestly,
Yes,
Billy Madison and Punch Drunk Love are like...
Uncut Gems was like my first foray into.
Oh,
his,
I haven't watched
series.
that. I will not. I refuse to watch any new Adam Sandler movies. I don't care how good everyone says it is.
I love him in Uncut Gems. I really like that movie. I really liked him in Hustle, which was like another dramatic basketball film he did on Netflix. So I will go back to Punch Drunk Love at some point and watch it. But yeah, I thought Spaceman was awesome. I hate...
If Uncut Gems was about dongs, then we would just...
I was going to make the joke that Mike's only interested in cut gems.
We don't have Jill here to make these jokes, so...
Shit, Jill with her milking the Minotaur's foreskin.
Yeah, whatever it was.
Yeah.
My two biggest fears, one is heights and the other is spiders. I hate spiders. Mm-hmm. And I would even want to hug and be friends with the creature from this film.
Paul Dano as a spider.
Yeah, Paul Dano as a talking therapist spider is life. I was just like, this is amazing. So yeah, if you haven't watched it, watch it. I think it's fantastic. I thought the score was really good and like everything about it I was really into. And then other than that, it's been just kind of documentary watching, just watching what, the rest of the world's watching. So I checked out the Antisocial Network Memes to Mayhem. This is like the new Netflix documentary about 4chan and how it connects into January 6th in the States. It was pretty interesting because they had a bunch of original members or creators of Anonymous that had left after the Occupy Wall Street stuff. And then this is basically after January 6th. These guys came back and fought against all the Trump people, by hacking and doing stuff. So it got into that. It got into some of the 8chan stuff, which there's already a documentary on Crave or HBO about that. So it was a little repetitive from that. There was a lot of talking points and talking heads that were kind of reused from that documentary. So this was all right, but I really liked, there was some great animation in it. Just when they're kind of just talking about, reality versus the internet and stuff. I thought the animations were pretty inventive, but, like most of this Netflix stuff, it's just kind of you know what you're getting with a Netflix documentary. It's usually not a 5-star product, but it's a watchable, good way to spend an hour and a half. And then I had to go watch, what I feel everyone that I, listen to podcast-wise is talking about, and that's the new HBO Max documentary, The Truth versus Alex Jones. I mean, it's about Sandy Hook and the court cases, and, the internet personality named Alex Jones, and it's pretty infuriating, obviously, because he's just a fucking psychopath, and you're trying to, wrap your head around how people, he just has millions and millions of people bought into all this garbage, even though he's 5 times under oath, telling people, oh, this is just a shtick to make money, I don't mean anything I say. And then, then he comes out and he's oh, no, I mean what I say. And everyone's oh, yeah, he's our savior. So yeah, this is pretty infuriating, but it was very well done. It was very interesting. Just because HBO got access to film all of the trial. So this is all unseen footage in the trials. And yeah, just kind of heartbreaking stuff, but super interesting.
Yeah, I only watched 20 minutes of that so far, and dude, that is a tough watch from what I've seen. Maybe it lightens up slightly as it goes on, as it focuses more on the trial. Yeah, but seeing all the parents of who lost their children, and essentially how they are all like husks of human beings now mostly, and that their lives have been ruined essentially. I found it very difficult to watch. Like, obviously I'm familiar with Alex Jones as like the guy who says crazy stuff online, and kind of like podcasts that I follow will like meme him to death, kind of basically this guy sucks, and he turned the freaking frogs gay, like sort of shit, right? Like all these stupid sound bites. But now it's like, even just after 20 minutes, it's just like, oh dude, this guy's just like evil. Like I can't even like laugh really at like him being like a living meme or anything anymore. It's like, it was very difficult what I saw so far. It was just kind of like, thankfully my, attention got dragged away elsewhere, and I was like, all right, I can take a break now. I'll get back to it eventually.
Yeah,
but it's just like,
it doesn't get any better, and he doesn't, as much as I think he, obviously in his twisted mind thought like the more he gave the documentary access, like the more he was like humanizing his situation, it just makes him seem even more evil and psychotic. And, like what you'd expect, most of this is just like, it's all a sham. He's just selling fake supplemental pills, and that's how he makes his money. But it's like, it's just heartbreaking that like this tragedy, like literally made him like tens of millions of dollars in fake supplemental sales just over this.
It's like war profiteering.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Literally, yeah.
And like if you followed the case in real time, obviously like it's all done, but like this guy still hasn't paid a cent to these families. Like, he's been hiding money and filed for bankruptcy and just doing like anything not to pay them like a cent. So, obviously you're going into this knowing it's not necessarily like a happy ending. But yeah, it's worth a watch. And then my last watch, I actually watched this morning while I was eating breakfast. It's FX's new documentary called Sperm World.
Oh, Mike's perking up.
This is like, I think Exilia gave it 4 stars. I gave it 5 stars. I've never seen anything like this. It's directed by Lance Oppenheim, who, I can't remember what the name is. He's only had like one other big documentary, but that documentary was about, retirees, and it was like produced by Darren Aronofsky. So like, this guy is pretty hardcore. He's young. He's like from Harvard Film School. And he does like a bunch of stuff for the New York Times. And I've never seen a documentary shot like this. It's like lots of like awkward, uncomfortable close-ups like May, December. And it's all shot like a Sofia Coppola movie. Like everything's whimsical and dreamy. The soundtrack is like almost like straight out of like It Follows, but like all the dreamy parts where the soundtrack is really light. And it's like all shot
when she's in her pool in the backyard.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all shot like surreal like that. And it's basically about the underground movement of illegal, I guess technically, sperm donors, where like there is I think it's called like Sperm World USA is like a Facebook group. I don't know much about it, but what I learned was that apparently it's like very expensive to go through like getting sperm the legal ways. So this is literally almost like a Craigslist of like...
But like, okay, I just need to say, like, how are there legal and illegal ways to get bodily fluids? Like, it just seems so bizarre to me.
I would guess, like, because these aren't really like, there's no like tests or anything like that. You're like trusting, but it's just bizarre.
You're getting a vial, online, and then
potentially
inseminate yourself.
Palm olive dish.
Well,
liquid.
And it gets weird because like a lot of the times it's like, because at first I'm like, oh, because there's guys that sign up that are like, I donate sperm, and there's people looking for sperm, whether it's because like a couple can't have children for whatever reason, or lots of reasons you'd want to have a child.
Yeah.
But at first I was like, oh, wait a second. Is this just like guys are just like banging people like to give them sperm? But it actually like isn't.
And they're like, joke's on you. I'm firing blanks.
Well, it's weird because it's actually not that. It's like they might like get a hotel room, but they actually don't do anything. It's like the guy will just go into the bathroom. He has like, you know, the like whatever the cup they put it in, the injector. He'll do his thing, and then they'll literally just like the woman will insert it in the hotel, and like the guys are usually like very knowledgeable, like, oh, you got to have your feet up for 15 minutes and that helps. And it's like they follow two guys that are like very bizarre. One guy has like 158 kids. Like, this is what he does. He does like, he's homeless, and he just, because he spends his entire year traveling because he visits all of his kids because he has open relationships like with the kids
with 158 women.
Yeah, it's wild. And like it's also like interesting because like he's not dating.
Wait, what was this on?
It's on. The funny thing is it's on Disney Plus because it's FX.
Oh my God.
Fun for the entire family.
Yeah. So you know, let's just get into it. We've talked about sperm long enough. So our movie...
No such thing.
No, our movie, obviously, for this episode is 1988's Beetlejuice. And we don't have Jill here to really tell the side of why we chose this. This was our easy pick for April Ghouls.
Yeah, this was like the unanimous choice that we all agreed upon, whereas the other pick was put to a roulette wheel, and maybe there might have been some fighting behind the scenes about refusing to do it.
There was 3 days solid worth of fighting, so just next episode, just keep that in mind when you listen to it.
3 days that were like spread over weeks of just like not being able to decide.
There were days of trying to figure out what is a ghoul and, Wikipedia definitions of ghouls and ghoul lists, and then talk of just picking a movie called Ghoul. It's, we all basically were like Beetlejuice and what else, you know?
Which is interesting because the internet, like, and, you know, the creators unanimously say that, like, Beetlejuice is a ghoul. But, like, the definitions we kept finding, it doesn't really seem like he fits the definition, which I'm sure could be a talking point later. But anyway, let's get into the trailer, and then we'll be back with the synopsis and first experiences.
From the director of Pee-wee's Big Adventure. When two ghosts can't talk the living into leaving their house.
What's the good of being a ghost if you can't frighten people away?
They call the ghost
Beetlejuice
with the most.
Yeah.
Can you be scary? What do you think of this?
This is amazing.
Michael Keaton is a ghost called Beetlejuice.
I'm the ghost with the most, babe.
Rated PG. Starts Wednesday, March 30th at a theater near you.
Beetlejuice was directed by Tim Burton and written by Michael McDowell and Warren Scarron, and the story is as follows. Thanks to an untimely demise brought on by man's best friend, a young couple end up as poltergeists in their New England farmhouse, where they fail to meet the challenge of scaring away the insufferable new owners who want to make drastic changes to the home's decor. In a desperate move, the undead newlyweds conjure a rambunctious spirit named Beetlejuice for help, who's got a diabolical agenda of his own.
So, is this our first time seeing this? Or are we just Tim Burton heads? We have everything Tim Burton. I remember a certain someone on the podcast just being obsessed with an inferior film called Sweeney Todd.
Inferior, you say?
Yes,
that's interesting.
I was like, please, I want some Sweeney Todd hate on this.
Yeah, so is this our first time watching it? Mike, we'll start with you.
Oh my God, girl. Like, I don't even need to, like, okay, so this is one of those films. I wouldn't be able to tell you the first time I saw it. It was when I was very young. I feel like we had it on a blank tape from, you know, it coming on TV or something like that, and we would just put it on constantly. It was always like birthday parties, throw the kids in front of a TV, put Beetlejuice on, sleepovers. I had it on a tape. I would just put on all the time. Like, literally, I feel like Beetlejuice is just, like, woven into my DNA. It was one of those, like, 10 or 12 movies that when I was a kid was just always every, like, month or so being played. Yeah, so I just, like, literally, I've seen it, like, 8 million times in my lifetime. What about you, Ro?
Yeah, I mean, this is like, there's probably not many movies I've seen more than this movie. I literally, I watched this today for the podcast, and I think I watched this like only like a month or two ago with my mom.
Yeah, I literally showed it to a dear friend of mine who's like a sister to me, and about 6 months ago, we were just having a few drinks at their house, and, you know, we were going to watch a movie, and she's like, I've never seen Beetlejuice. I was like, how the fuck did I live with you for 4 years and not know this? And so like 6 months ago, I showed it to her. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I've only owned the 4K of this for a couple months, and I've watched the 4K at least 3 times.
How does it look? By the way?
It's fantastic.
Should I buy it?
Oh yeah. It's like one of the cheaper 4Ks. You can get this for like $20. And the 4K, it literally looks like a brand new movie. Like, it's really a flawless transfer. But yeah, I mean, this was also this is probably one of the earliest VHS memories I can think of. And this was one, like, my family had a lot of, like you said, Mike, like taping movies off of television. So we'd have cassette tapes that had multiple movies on it. This was one my family like bought and owned that I've always remembered owning, like, forever. So I've had, like, you know, every media variation of this. I was a huge fan of the cartoons.
With his laser disc of
yeah,
Beetlejuice.
That's right, the laser disc.
You need to go on eBay now and find one of those. I bet you it's like $500.
Probably. Like a huge fan of the cartoon growing up.
Oh my god,
from
yes!
the 90s.
I love the animated series.
Yeah, which I may or may not have tried to watch while I was on mushrooms, and it was I had to shut it off. It was too overstimulating. Although I will say, Beetlejuice the movie on mushrooms, all-time experience. It was like a house experience.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like anything would be too overstimulating when you're on mushrooms.
But the movie is fantastic. But yeah, so obviously not my first time. What about you, Colton?
Yeah, this is a first time for me. I used to call myself a Tim Burton fan back in the day. Like, I've basically seen all of his movies that he's known for. This was a huge, just missing link in his filmography for me. Essentially, my familiarity with Beetlejuice is dating an emo girl in high school, and she had a sandworm tattoo, and I didn't know what it was.
What the fuck? That's not what I expect. That's not where I expected that to go.
Well, that is my familiarity. Of course, she forced me to watch, Nightmare Before Christmas. Which
I thought you were gonna say
Tim
like,
Burton.
yeah, she had a Nightmare Before Christmas, or like she dressed like Lydia Dietz or something.
You sure?
Yeah.
You sure she's not just a big Dune fan?
Judging by like the difference in quality between these sandworms and the Dune sandworms. But
what about maybe she was a Tremors fan?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, I think she did like Tremors actually, but it was explicitly. The Beetlejuice sandworm. But yeah, I've never seen it. I mean, she probably wanted me to watch it back then. I don't know why I wouldn't have. But yeah, this was a first time watch for me. And
you said, much like, I was about to call him Beetlejuice, Meatloaf, I would do anything for love, but I won't do that.
True. I mean, I definitely did watch some pretty bad movies that were favorites of hers. But... for whatever reason, I wouldn't watch Beetlejuice. So this was a first time watch for me this afternoon.
Well, fellas, let's grab our handbooks for the recently diseased. Let's get into the Zagnut bars and sandworms of it all. It's showtime. Let's talk Beetlejuice. Colton's already holding his head, holding his face. I mean, I want to start at the beginning of the film.
This is the beginning.
The music. Iconic. I'm going to use the word iconic a lot in this.
No, but you're right. And I, like, literally half of my notes for this movie I will spill right now. Like, there are certain things in pop culture that everybody is obsessed with and, like, kind of become legendary for a reason. And I think that this movie actually made Harry Belafonte like become this like pop culture icon. Like there's like his songs now you cannot hear without thinking about this movie. You can't. It's impossible. And it starts right off the bat, and his songs go through the whole fucking movie.
Oh yeah, they're fantastic. I still think this is the best Danny Elfman score.
Oh, okay, you're talking score. I'm here talking Harry Belafonte.
Listen, we'll talk Harry Belafonte all day also.
Okay.
I mean, I think the music and the score in this, just like you said, obviously, I mean, no one's listening to Deo, the Banana Boat song.
You do not hear that anymore without thinking about that scene.
Jake Senora, like, they're linked together forever. But yeah, to me, it was just the Danny Elfman score. Like, even watching this today, like, I was like, you know what, I haven't slept at all last night. I need to have a nap after I watch this. And like, you know, I'm up for like an extra half hour because I'm just like humming the theme song and I'm like pumped. I'm just, it gets me excited, guys. Colton, what do you think?
I just want you guys to say your piece. That's all, because it's literally like, I certainly don't associate like the songs that Mike's talking about with Beetlejuice, you know, this afternoon. I'm sure I've heard these songs before at some point in my life.
But like Deo, the Banana Boat song, it's like literally one of the most famous songs of all time.
I don't even know at what point in the movie that song comes on anymore.
Oh,
is it the dinner scene? Is that the dinner scene? Oh, okay.
It's actually played multiple times, but mostly during the dinner scene.
Yeah, the dinner scene is like where this movie just started to completely lose me. So.
Oh my God. Literally, if you need me, I'll be lying down on the floor.
I was like, wow, Rowan, you were tired going into this movie and you didn't just sleep like after the dinner scene?
God.
Like as if you had like a big like turkey dinner or something. That's impressive. If we wanted to start with the beginning of the movie, I just thought like even the opening shot of like the helicopter stuff was pretty good. Like going through the town and then it winds up being like the diorama and then you know, the big spider crawling over. I thought that's where you were starting. Or even like your hatred of dogs, which is the only note I have. Is this why Rowan hates dogs?
The dog is the one that killed them. The dog killed them.
You know, the town is amazing. The miniature work in this is awesome. Like,
yeah, it's good.
It really is. It's extremely well done.
Obviously in the beginning and like when we get into like all the Beetlejuice stuff, like living in the town.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. It's honestly a masterclass in like kind of not practical effects as such, even though that is obviously part of it, but just like doing things physically. Like everything that would have been green screened or like CG'd today is like done practically somehow. And it's just, I think that's why it's so timeless.
I'll be curious to see if the sequel later this year uses like as many practical effects and practical sets and whatnot.
I assume Tim Burton is directing
he is
it.
coming back.
Is he? Okay. But I don't know, because it's so funny because so I was watching this and I'm like, sometimes when I'm watching a movie and I know like what people's kind of thoughts on it are, and I unfortunately when I was rewatching it knew Colton's and I knew Rose, so I kind of knew where we all stood. And when I was rewatching it, I was also thinking about like, you know, the context and like my reactions to it, and then I was thinking about the new one coming out, and I was thinking about Tim Burton's whole career as a whole, and I was thinking like one of the great things that I love about this is the abundance of like miniature work and, you know, practical effects and things like that, but and how effective it was, and how it's like got this like slight tinge of like aging it, but also it's kind of cute and quirky, so it kind of is ageless at the same time. But then I was thinking about how, as I've said when we have done Tim Burton movies before, like further into his career, he kind of becomes self-parody, and I feel like he went from, you know, the more like kind of physical, practical aspect to like overly relying on like CG and stuff, which I think for like a very brief, there's like this little brief period in his career where he kind of hit his peak, and that was really good. But then that was all, I think. Yeah. Like, and then after that, it's like it's completely reliant on it, and it becomes like that part of his self-parody. And I was thinking about that. I was like, I wonder if he's going to move away from that like kind of self-parody CG giant heads in Alice in Wonderland sort of, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I would assume it's probably going to have a bunch of visual effects in it in terms of like CGI, because he's just been trending further and further in that direction, right? Like obviously Alice in Wonderland, but even more recently with like, you know, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children or Dumbo. Like obviously you're not.
Oh my God, I forgot he did the Miss Peregrine adaptation because I never did watch that.
Yeah, so like those movies are a lot more reliant on CG visual effects rather than like, detailed sets and, all these practical effects and weird
Which is funny because,
stuff.
like, if anybody can carte blanche, like, practical effects budget, you think it would be him.
Well, that's why I kind of think it must be just, like, an interest from himself to, like, try and use more, like, digital photography and stuff in his movies rather than, the old special effects, makeup, and creature effects. Maybe he got bored of it after doing it for 20 years. Yeah. I don't know. But...
maybe he should get bored of the CG too, because it ain't working, girl.
I would kind of hope so as well, just because, as some people could probably read between the lines. This wasn't like I wasn't big on this movie overall, but one of my notes or talking points is that there's obviously great creativity within the whole movie, but also just the application of the special effects, makeup, and creature effects and whatnot is kind of a standout for this movie for me. And it's obviously
for sure
he's kind of carried that sort of vibe on through a lot of his movies, just as like Mike was discussing, for at least the first half of his career for sure.
I mean, to me, this is like the peak of his career, just because
his second movie.
Yeah.
Before Batman. Like, you're saying, like, all right, Pee-wee Herman's great directorial debut, but, Beetlejuice.
Now, Pee-wee's Big Adventure is a masterpiece. Yeah. Let's not, like, slag off on it. I just have to throw that out there. But yes, you're right, Colton. You're right.
To me, Tim Burton's top three go in order. It goes Pee-wee, Beetlejuice, Batman. That is the order.
Girl, You're peg you for a fucking Edward Scissorhands.
Oh, no.
Like,
Scissorhands is
job.
Great. I actually like Sleepy Hollow as well, which, it's been a long time
I love
like
Sleepy Hollow. And I'm going to say, it's on record, and I'm really glad Jill is not here right now. It is on record that I fucking hate Johnny Depp, and I hate one of the things I hate about him is that, like, him and Tim Burton became, like, this weird
best
symbiotic, parasitic relationship. But their first couple movies together, like Scissorhands and Sleepy Hollow, excellent. Sleepy Hollow is actually extremely underrated. Yeah.
I just think for Tim Burton, for me, like, with this film and the reason I mean, obviously, I've been on record, like, I'm like one of the world's. They'll probably make a documentary about me someday of how big of a Pee Wee Herman fan I am. I'm like a massive Pee Wee Herman fan, but like to me, that movie and this movie, like I think you said the best thing about it, Mike, is just like the kind of like quirkiness and cuteness of like this just like bizarre aesthetic, especially this where like this like what we would think now of is like this Tim Burton goth aesthetic, but like just everything rolled in, like the claymation and like all the stop motion stuff, and like I get like some someone Colton or like I'm thinking even someone younger that would like watch this now and be like, what the fuck am I watching? Like these clay things.
But you have to, exactly. And you have to put it in the, like, context of when it came out. Like, it was, you've seen it so much since then, but it's because it was the blueprint.
Yeah, and, I was just thinking, like, how impressive this film looks, in terms of all the stop motion, how much work that is. Like, I was reading a little bit, because I've never, like, read up on the movie, and I was watching some of the special features, and, like, this had a $15 million budget, and they only had $1 million for effects. That was it. And to me, the movie looks this good for $1 million. I'm like, that's like skill that, hopefully it's not going to happen, but, hopefully Tim Burton could bring some of that like ingenuity into the sequel for this and, go back to basics.
Oh, yeah. Like my criticisms with the movie wouldn't be necessarily on like the special effects and whatnot. For me, like your guys were mentioning like this quirky tone, and I agree. It's kind of whimsical. And, obviously it has like the Tim Burton morbidity like throughout the whole thing as well. For me, it's just as someone who's watching it for the first time, I don't think Rowan would like this movie if he was watching it the first time. This is like some PG ass horror that it isn't Disney Channel, but it's like just a step above Disney Channel that I feel like if Rowan was watching this for the first time without any nostalgia and like, as his age now, he would basically we'd be on Now Slaying and he'd be like, yeah, it's gateway horror, but it's PG ass horror. This sucks, I could pretty much guarantee it. So I'm not that harsh. It's just when I was watching it, like this, like to me, it just felt like I could see this with Halloween Town or Hocus Pocus or, something like that.
Well, I mean, and again, like I'm firmly like aware of the fact that I did see it when I was the age when you would be watching those things, and that it kind of, like I said, it became part of my DNA because as a kid, I watched it so much. But also I think that at that time, around when it was released and even for a few years after, like, I feel like that era, because it was still like the boom of like, you know, slasher movies and horror was really big at the time, that there wasn't a lot of like family-friendly gateway sort of PG horror like there is now, because, you know, horror has been such a staple for decades that like you always have your like PG, but like I
probably
totally
due
get
to
that.
movies like this and
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And because this, you know, was so huge and influential, but like I totally like what you're saying, even if, you know, we might disagree on our, you know, overall kind of like judgment of the movie. I totally get where you're coming from. I do think that Ro probably would be like, you know, thumbs down.
Yeah.
And maybe I would too if I hadn't seen it 500 times before I was 13 years old, you know?
I'm willing to recognize, yet not willing to remove the nostalgia off of it.
No, and you shouldn't. Like, that's like literally,
but
that's
I get
the great thing about art, right?
Me and Jill
so
talk
subjective.
about this all the time, because I know Jill, I'm pretty sure she said she's like a big Halloween Town person. She loves Hocus Pocus. And like, I mean, we did Hocus Pocus on the show, and I mean, I hated it. Like, I
didn't give it a good review.
No, and I saw that. I saw that
I haven't
in the
seen
theater.
this in 20 years, and it was awful.
I saw that in the theater when it came out, and this is probably the reason I didn't like those, because to me, I'm like, I don't know what it is, man, and I feel like a lot of people must feel the same, because obviously, like, you know, this movie spawned Beetlejuice into like this huge property. He had a bunch of video games, he had a cartoon, they were selling Beetlejuice toys at McDonald's and Burger King.
Oh yeah, like, and that's literally the thing. Like, that's like, to me, this is both a like testament to its like kind of pervasiveness as a cultural property, and also it's a damning condemnation of it. To me, this movie does remind me of McDonald's. I think we actually had a VHS of it that came from McDonald's that you bought in like Happy Meal. Like, they used to have like,
those were the days. Like, those were awesome.
Yeah, right. You could get like Addams Family. Like, I had an Addams Family on VHS because we got it. And Ghost. Like, Ghost, I used to watch this fucking like weird erotic adult thing because we got it for like
the clay molding movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
they used
shit.
to sell that at McDonald's for like
movie,
$7 in like the early 90s.
Nice.
It's like it was a wild time. But it does like remind me of that, because you'd get the like Happy Meal toys.
They got to bring that back.
So
they got to bring the movies with the Happy Meal. I remember getting National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon at KFC on DVD.
Yeah.
What a time. What a time to be alive.
So when you guys are watching this then, like, are you actually invested in the narrative of like Adam and Barbara and like trying to get the ghosts out of the house? Or are you literally just like, I can't wait for the next like cool practical effect, or I can't wait for, you know, the next Michael Keaton scene, you know? Like, are you guys actually invested in it, you know?
I do have to say this. I know I'm kind of like partially agreeing with you, which I didn't think I was going to do, but like, I have watched it twice in the last year as an adult, and fully, and especially today. Like, the other time, you know, again, we were just like, you know, tossing back wine and smoking joints, and it was just like, oh my God, you haven't seen this before. And I was just trying to like be in it with my friend because I thought like she's really going to enjoy this movie. But like, when I was rewatching it today, or was it today, yesterday, whenever I rewatched it, I don't know, my sense of time is gone. Today, yeah. Like, I really was sort of going like, okay, I'm going to try to be like step back from it a little bit. And I was like, I do actually get why I have loved this for my whole life. It is nostalgic, and it is because I watched it a lot as a kid. But I was like, to me personally, there is also like, I do find all the actors really charming, and the writing is good. And I feel like I am actually a little bit invested in it. So, I mean, to answer your question, yes, I do feel invested.
Like I was for sure for like the first act of the movie, I think, and then eventually I just kind of felt like,
once the New York people show up, it's sort of,
it just changes tone, and it kind of, you know, I feel like it just starts repeating, like, okay, some ghost stuff's happening, and then Winona Ryder's checking on them, and then it's just like we're almost like waiting for the next,
and then they're gonna like they're trotting out the next like we need to do this like puppet
scare.
act for the rich people.
This next effect is kind of what we're waiting for. And as someone who I was watching it, I was kind of like invested weirdly in like Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis in the beginning of the movie when they were like, oh, we're ghosts, like no one can see us, all that sort of thing. And I was like, oh, how's Beetlejuice going to factor into this? And then when the Dietzes get there, it was just like, all right, obviously the movie gets a lot larger and there's more characters, more personalities. It was just like after a certain point, I think I just kind of got exhausted.
And Catherine O'Hara, like we just
it.
need to say Queen.
Oh yeah, she's great as well.
We're not going to talk about the other one.
Yeah, well that's the thing too. Like I actually don't really like Alec Baldwin either. And now obviously after he's
I'm not even talking about Alec Baldwin.
I know who the other one you're talking about is. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay,
but I was gonna say specifically, I don't really like Alec Baldwin, and then. He's in this movie,
but
and I thought
he was very good in this movie.
He was all right. There were points where I was just like, oh, it just kind of looks like him again, right?
Yeah.
It just kind of looks like, I don't know, it's weird. There's points in this movie where he kind of looks like Ryan Gosling and almost has like the charm of a Ryan Gosling.
He
and
does.
Then there's other points in this movie where it's like, I could see you just on like your sitcom being like this grumpy, almost Trump impression.
Jack
sort of
Donaghy,
guy.
yeah.
Yeah, it just like drives me. But yeah, do we want to talk about the other guy?
I love Alec Baldwin in this. This is the
Gina Davis is so charming. I love her.
My opinion in this, and even we can get into it. We already reviewed a movie with this guy in it.
Okay.
So I think we had this conversation like 2 years ago.
Well, we can just, quickly address it.
But other than that, like even him, which we said last time in the last movie, I'm like, it's such a shame because that guy cooks in everything he's in. Mm-hmm. He's fantastic.
Ferris fucking Bueller. Like he literally
Ferris Bueller.
How do you like steal the movie from like all of those fucking actors, like Matthew Broderick, and that is like fire.
Yeah.
And somehow he manages, but it's like, fuck, you're such a piece of shit.
Listen,
you're such a piece of shit.
Stay tuned. Howard the Duck. Like this guy bats 1,000 for me. But I was going to say, as the larger cast, I think, like, I don't think anyone, like, it's a perfect cast. I don't have a problem with anyone's performance.
No, it really is.
I think everyone is, like, batting 100
Robert
in this.
Goulet coming in and being like the weird like New York fucking like rich dude. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like, and yeah, obviously like no one could have done this role. I mean, maybe, but like Winona Ryder, like just perfection in this.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, it was a career-making role for a reason. Like,
yeah, Catherine O'Hara and like, I mean, everyone obviously, I'm sure will have a bigger Michael Keaton discussion like after. He kind of deserves his own spot. But yeah, all right, Jeffrey Jones, yeah.
Okay, but I'm gonna say, I just need to say, it's just so funny because Tim Burton goes on to, I think, an even greater commercial height with Michael Keaton and Batman.
Yeah.
And he wasn't familiar with, I was looking it up a little bit while I was watching it today. Apparently, he was not familiar with Michael Keaton before they started like casting this movie.
Yeah, he was like the third or fourth choice.
Yeah, and it's, I just thought that was so interesting because I was like, they, hit gold with this and then hit gold with Batman. Like essentially, I'm gonna say Batman like kind of was like the template for superhero movies for years until like the whole Marvel thing. But I just think it's so funny that like the two of them made a couple of like perfect movies. And that he didn't become the muse of Tim Burton's career, and that Johnny D apostrophe star PP did. I don't want to say his name, even though I already did. I'm like trying to censor myself, but I just find it like weird that Michael Keaton didn't become the like muse of his career and like do 20 movies.
It's just
with him.
because Johnny Depp was in better movies with Tim Burton. That's all.
I mean, he was not in better movies overall, but we won't go there.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I always, Michael Keaton had a good career, but I feel like it is a shame because Michael Keaton, although he had a good career, like, I just feel like he could have had a bigger career. I can't think of anything I really see Michael Keaton in that I'm like, oh man, he was terrible in this. Like, and this is just kind of like his thing. He's great, like a great comedy actor. Obviously, if anyone's like watched any interview about anything about like Michael Keaton, he always talks about like, you know, he auditioned for SNL, like they kind of wanted him for SNL. He wanted to be like a stand-up comedian, and then, you know, things just kind of turned that he became an actor and kind of an A-list actor, you know, when he was trying to get the comedy stuff off the ground.
But it's just so funny because this was such a huge hit and he's fucking literally unrecognizable in it.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I'm just like wondering if maybe this was his issue, that like one of his big giant, you know, huge massive breakout roles, like you literally don't know who he is. Like if you didn't know that was Michael Keaton, like you wouldn't know it was Michael Keaton. So that's sort of an issue when you're completely like who played Gollum in Lord of the Rings, like whoever, you know. Like I wouldn't recognize that man in another movie.
Andy Serkis.
Yeah. I know I've seen him and stuff, but like it's that kind of like same sort of like.
To be fair, Gollum is literally like a CGI creature that
okay,
Andy Serkis is mocapping. You know, it's still Michael Keaton in makeup in this movie. I will agree,
but he's in it's massive makeup, and you do like he literally does that. Like I have been watching Michael Keaton in movies for like 30 years, and I still, when I watch Beetlejuice, and I've seen it 500 times, I still don't recognize him as Michael Keaton. I hear the voice and I know it's him, but like I just don't recognize him.
All this Michael Keaton love, you guys need to watch his directorial debut, Knox Goes Away, which I think just came out on streaming if you want to see a bad Michael Keaton performance.
Listen, he can do no wrong, man.
I'm not interested in his directorial debut.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
You shouldn't be. It's very boring.
And I will say this. I love Beetlejuice, but you would completely lose me at Michael Keaton's directorial debut. Like that would immediately make me just like switch my brain off. Like,
so I mean, yeah, let's just get it away. We talked about Jeffrey Jones, you know, convicted.
I like we went on like a Michael Keaton fest for 5 minutes after just like talking about how terrible this guy is and not naming him. But anyways, yes.
Yeah, Jeffrey Jones, you know, some child pornography charges he pled guilty to. What was the movie review that he was in? It was Ravenous. That was it.
Ravenous, yes, because again, really good movie.
No,
excellent movie.
No.
I actually forgot that. Yeah, because he was really good in that, and that was like around the same time, wasn't it? Was it before?
Yeah, I think it was like right around. I mean,
right before, yeah.
You know, kind of the good thing in general is like this guy pretty much hasn't acted in like a big anything. I think the biggest thing is he was in like the Deadwood revival or whatever, just because he was. I've never seen that, but apparently that was a huge show, and he was in the original show, so they brought him back for like whatever they did, a movie or something.
Yeah.
But you know, and it's unfortunate. I mean, he's a piece of shit because I think he's kind of, you know, he was like considered like the character actor for like so long, and is always like, you know, it's one of those like complicated things I guess you have to do as a viewer with complicated people. Because I'm just like, he's like one of my favorite parts of this movie. Like, I love the dad character in this movie.
And that's the thing. He's like one of the most sympathetic characters, right? Like, he's like the voice of reason. And it's so funny, actually, because I remember when the teaser came out for the new Beetlejuice, like, what was that, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago? I remember the day that it came out. I hadn't even seen the teaser yet, but like, I think I was like, I woke up, my alarm went off, and I was just like scrolling through Twitter in bed or whatever, like while I was trying to wake up. And someone posted like, you know, oh, the Beetlejuice teaser is out. They're like, oh God, I wonder how they're gonna deal with Jeffrey Jones. And then it's like 2 seconds into the trailer, funeral scene, and they're like, oh, okay, that's how. It's just like, okay, that's how you do it. And you know what? That's the like moment that brings them all back to the house, right? So I was like, that's actually kind of clever. Just kill him off.
His relationship with Catherine like O'Hara is fantastic in this. Like, like they're such good complementary.
They're two comedians. Yeah, it's like their energy bouncing off each other is wild.
Did you look at like any of the like people they wanted to get for like any of these roles? It's
fucking
wild.
I saw. Okay, so I saw that. Who was second in choice for Lydia?
Alyssa Milano.
Alyssa Milano, yeah, and they were saying how like a bunch of other people auditioned, like Jennifer Connelly and a bunch of other people.
Yeah, like Molly Ringwald.
And oh my god, yeah. And honestly, I think like Ringwald would have also killed it. But I know I saw who would have been the other who like if it wasn't Catherine O'Hara, it would have been. Tell me who it is because I've already forgotten it.
So it was Angelica Houston. What?
Yes! Oh my god, I was like, it was someone that I love. She would have been amazing.
And
but,
she
like,
was casted,
also Addams
but
Family.
couldn't do it because she got sick, which. You know, I think it's fine because she got to be in the Addams Family.
She got to do Addams
movie,
Family,
so.
yeah. Again, another McDonald's VHS movie.
But I just thought it was super interesting about the first choice for Beetlejuice being Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah, that's like that was,
which is wild.
So now I'm wondering, were they gonna use like different music? Like I
did read everything I could about this. So apparently in the original script, the idea was that all the music was supposed to be R&B music.
Okay.
And Beetlejuice was Middle Eastern. It really didn't make any sense, so I'm glad they tweaked it. Beetlejuice was supposed to be Middle Eastern, and he was also, to quote Wikipedia, supposed to talk in an African American vernacular. So he was supposed to like, I guess use like street slang and stuff was the original idea.
This is reminding me of the quote from one of my favorite movies of all time, Airplane, where the old 80-year-old white lady walks up and says, "Excuse me, stewardess, I speak jive," and then starts,
So, I mean, obviously it could have been told a different movie. They originally, in the script, wanted to end the movie, the end song, to be When a Man Loves a Woman, which would have been odd, I would think. I don't really know how that would fit. But totally just the original script, totally different movie. Apparently it was basically rated R. It was Beetlejuice was demonic. He had wings. He was pure evil.
I mean, it makes sense because he is very demonic.
Yeah, I don't know how, I thought it was interesting they thought they cleaned it up a lot, because apparently the thing was going to be that he wanted to rape Lydia. That was going to be, the plot line. I mean, he still wants to marry her, so...
I still thought that was a little problematic, yeah.
It's still definitely, cringy, and...
Yeah, it's the 80s,
I mean,
guys.
when I was watching it when I was young... She was so much older than me. She seemed like she could have been 40, you know what I mean? For half of my life, I was watching this and going, oh yeah, that's fine. And now I'm I hadn't watched it for 10, 15 years. And then all of a sudden I watch it twice in a year and I'm like, this is making me feel icky, but that's fine. He's an evil, he's a villain. He's scum anyway. So
I never give it a hard time. It's the 80s, and guess what? Cocaine's one hell of a drug. So
girl,
I know you're saying
also...
he's evil, he's supposed to be scum, but it's I mean, most people when they watch Beetlejuice like Beetlejuice, I assume, right? we're not all
but this is the same type of people who are watch Friday 13th movies for Jason and not the beautiful final girls.
I mean, I think he's he does have his endearing qualities.
My perspective on this is skewed. I've never been a fan of the character of Beetlejuice. I've always been Lydia, you are my girl. I love you. I am you. You are me.
I love, maybe, I don't know. This is the older problematic part. I just love Beetlejuice. I like his little, sexual deviant side of him. When we get
but he is, yeah. And he goes and
we get the brothel.
They have that whole scene where it's he's going to the brothel.
Yeah, I don't think we can put it past this movie that maybe, this kind of courtship at the end of the movie put the idea in Jeffrey Jones's head. I thought it was all right.
Not that.
That it was normal.
Wait, did he know the screenwriters? Did he influence this?
I mean, that I will say that ends that end kind of scene with the priest, the hell priest, and it looks so good. That creature looks amazing.
The
design,
door behind the priest is very cool looking. And the green light. I love the lighting in this movie. But
wait, that's what that creature is called? The hell
I don't know what he's called.
Okay. That's what Pinhead is called. But
yeah, I was gonna say like what? Like the guy who looks like a raisin?
An alien. The alien from like Area 51.
Spent too much time in the sun. Like that's what we're going with, the Hell Priest. All right.
So I thought maybe, like I said, maybe Michael Keaton deserves a bigger conversation than just, mentioning him in a cast of, like, how did you guys feel about, like, his performance as Beetlejuice, like, his comedic timing, like, there's definitely scenes where he's got to kind of be menacing and scary.
Oh, yeah, like, that's the thing. With Michael Keaton, you guys mentioned iconic a couple of times, like, in reference to this movie. I do think, his performance is pretty iconic. I when I was watching this, I've heard people compare it in the past to like, Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. He's only in so much, but he steals the movie.
Yeah.
So I've heard like the movie's called Beetlejuice. He's in all the marketing. He's on the poster, but realistically, he's probably in like 15 minutes of the movie, if that, sort of thing. So when I came into this, I was like, oh, they really are, playing Beetlejuice close to the chest. Like he's in like nothing. He's in a commercial as like a cowboy.
25 minutes in total.
Okay, so yeah, he's in like basically nothing in the beginning of the movie other than like cowboy on like a commercial, which I thought was pretty great. Little stupid introduction.
It was cute. It was very cute. Yeah.
Yeah. With like the
and they used the true spelling of his name,
in the background. Like I thought that was cute, and then I mean, as he pops up throughout the movie, I think it's a great performance. I think he is funny. I will say, for me personally, it is the sort of performance I think gets a little bit exhausting. Like I do think like they made a good choice of like putting him in only like 25 minutes. As opposed to all 90 minutes. Let's see if
it's very over the top.
Let's see if the sequel kind of continues that, or if now all of a sudden he's in 80% of the movie. But I get why people like this performance, and it was a great showing by him. Don't know how you get this and go like, what, this guy would kill it as Batman, but that's besides the point, I guess.
Very strange. It's just so funny because I feel like you wouldn't do the same type of performance today, because I feel like for the time when all you had was like TV commercials, and maybe like they were still doing radio commercials, so you needed your drops, you needed your like quotes, because like occasionally you would advertise a fucking movie on the radio, so it would just be like blah blah blah, and then Lydia discovers, and then it'll be like a couple quotes from the movie, so you need your like quote drops, and it everything was like it needed to be quotable like shit to like draw people. And I feel like this was like kind of the height of you need these like over the top performances, because you had to like grab people. You had one chance, and it was trailers in the theater or a commercial on TV, and that was pretty much it. You know what I mean? You didn't have like Letterboxd, you didn't have people like reviewers online, you had like maybe your newspaper or whatever, but I feel like most of it was like it had to be like grab your attention on the TV screen, and that was pretty much it. So I totally like get both sides of that, in that like I don't think that like that same sort of that style of performance would fly today, but I also feel like when I watch it and rewatch it, I understand why it kind of was as overstated as it was. Maybe, I don't know. Rob, what do you think?
I think it works like 100%. I mean, obviously, like I said, I love this movie. I mean, I think to me, you're right, Colton. Like, I think 90 minutes of it could be, like, super grating. It's interesting, obviously, how much this connected with young people. Because, like we said, like, it went on to be an animated show that's literally all Beetlejuice. Although I would argue, like, the show is very different because it builds out, like, an entire world of the dead, essentially, is, like, where you are. You're not even in the real world in the cartoon. But, yeah, I could see this would have been a little too much if it was throughout the whole movie. But, like, I think about the scene where, like, Barbara and Adam are in the miniature with him, and he's, like, trying to sell himself. And, like, to me, like, that is Beetlejuice to perfection. Like, when he's going on the rant about his qualifications, like, I literally cry laughing.
And it's this, like, motor-mouthed kind of, like...
Yeah, I've seen The Exorcist about 167 times, and it keeps getting funnier every time I see it. And then, of course, like, to me, I think the most brilliant part is when they leave, and he kicks the tree, and then he's just like, nice fucking model, and then he like grabs his dick and it just like honks, which also, fun fact, is totally ad-libbed.
Oh, of course. I mean, how would you even write that in?
Apparently, the tree wasn't supposed to fall, and he ad-libbed that, and he was saying it to, like, the set designer.
The people, yeah. He's like, yeah, nice fucking tree. And they're like,
and then Tim Burton was like, we gotta keep it in. But, like, yeah, I just, I think it's in the wrong hands. It would have been you could go very wrong with his character. Because, like we said, there's also, like, a lot, he's got, like, this sexual deviancy to him and all this stuff. Like, an actor could play it, like, super creepy, and it could just, like, be really weird. And he just, like, I think he just hit the tone exactly what it needed to be. Colton will probably identify with my next note on this film is I just have Lydia Dietz, the blueprint for goth girls, ?
Oh my god, I have literally 2 whole lines saying, like, Colton will probably think this.
Well, and I'm just thinking, we don't have Jill, so we don't have, like, a resident goth girl, but we do have a resident dater of goth girls, Colton.
More so scene girls. See, that's the thing.
Yeah,
Lydia,
scene girls are goth girls who aren't actually goth. They just put on the goth affectation.
Yeah, they wind up with, like, the colorful hair and whatnot, and they're not.
They're not dyed in the wool goth. They're just like performative goth. Yeah,
basically, I think Lydia is probably, a lot of those sorts of girls would obviously look at her and think she's iconic and probably model themselves to a certain degree after her.
I have iconic written next to her name.
Obviously, and just also in the way, like, she's, like, so morbid in her dry sense of humor and all that sort of thing. Like, a lot of kind of people that I've, hung out with and whatnot, and yes, dated to a certain degree, like, they were like that, right? They had a similar affectation as Lydia, right? In Goose Bay growing up, was there actual, like, real goth girls that dressed in all black, like, white painted faces and, like, black makeup? No, not really. But when I was growing up, there was a huge,
but don't forget the black bridal veils over her face all the time.
No. Like, no, it's a little bit much for, like, my hometown, but there was, like, a healthy scene community, but it was more so the colored hair, the couple of piercings.
And to be fair, Lydia was, like, from a larger culture. Like, they were clearly New York people who were, like, moving to this, like, small community. So
of course, yeah, no, I'm not necessarily criticizing.
You can't expect Lydias in Labrador.
Exactly, right? And especially not, like, at the time period when this movie came out either. Like, I don't think there was a single scene or emo kid in Labrador until 2005, like, so. But yeah, it's the sort of thing, like, when I watch this movie, I can understand how, like, those sorts of girls would essentially see themselves to a certain degree in Lydia. And, it's probably nice to see yourself represented on film in some regard, right? And not to just be, like, the morose goth type that's, like, miserable all the time. Like, she's more so, like, sardonic and cracking jokes and sarcastic and whatnot, right? She's just, a little bit
Yeah, because when they go missing, she's like, I want to, like, she's literally like, I want to go to the other side, but it's because I want to find my friends.
Yeah.
Not because I want to be dead.
Yeah, not necessarily, right? It's like, well, yeah, that's kind of what you're saying, and that's what the movie's, like, winking at and joking at. And they're like, oh, honey, you don't want to go there. But, it's like, obviously, like, lots of teenagers, they have these feelings of like, oh, I don't even want to be here anymore, or I hate my life or whatnot. So, yeah, she's very much like the embodiment of that. And, she is good in the movie. I enjoyed her performance as well.
And she gets, like, what I think are probably, like, the 2 most iconic lines in the movie, which one is, my whole life is a dark room, which I feel I've seen on many, Instagram bios or, Facebook or what was... MySpace or something before that.
Friendster. You're forgetting Friendster. It was definitely Friendster.
And then, what I feel is the most iconic because it's on every Beetlejuice Spirit Halloween promotional item.
Can we all say it at the exact same time?
Of course. I myself.
One am strange and unusual.
Which even in the cartoon, like the cartoon of Beetlejuice, she says that like every episode. That was, the tagline for it. But like, yeah, just some Lydia Dietz love. Like the outfits, the lines, everything. rocked it. Fun fact, original script, they were just gonna kill her at the end. So
oh my god.
Apparently she was gonna get murdered, so then she would also become a ghost. So good times.
Yeah, but I mean, then she'd get to hang out with her friends all the time. So really, like that's like a happy ending in a way.
It's not the worst ending. Like I could see that being like a first draft ending.
But it's just so funny because I have like, okay, Lydia, Colton will hate her. She is so Bridget coded, i.e. Bridget from
She's
Ginger
not.
Snaps.
That's the thing. It's like Bridget coded in the original Ginger Snaps. Like she's just morose and like, unemotional and annoying.
I mean, like Bridget is obviously a watered down like wannabe.
It's Lydia without the personality. That's the thing. Where
but I'm just saying like but like I guess my point was Lydia was like the blueprint for a Bridget.
Yeah, I mean, probably.
Right? Like, it's like what, like,
it's
like
a
you
bad
you could literally see, like, if you showed me in the director's cut of Ginger Snaps, them sitting in their, like, basement in their dark room watching Beetlejuice, I would not have been surprised.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. It's just, we don't need to relitigate Ginger Snaps.
We're not gonna go there. I just wanted to bring it up because, I'm a troll.
Of course, yeah. No, I didn't hate her in the movie, but like once again, it's like I didn't like love her either. It's just I understand how the character would, gravitate towards certain people and they'd enjoy her.
Yeah.
I mean, I only had two more real big notes on this. One was, I feel like we gotta leave a little room for sandworms. The superior sandworms, Beetlejuice
they weren't
sandworms.
quite as prominent as I was expecting. Like,
they
I don't know.
They literally only have 40 seconds of screen time.
They didn't feel like they were iconic to me in the movie. Maybe I'm just like, once again, since I'm not like a fan of this, like, were you guys like on the edge of your seat waiting for the sandworms to show up?
So this is another thing where I think over time it gets muddled. That sandworms are very prominent in the cartoon.
Okay.
Like, they ride them. They're silly sandworms. There's mean
but also,
sandworms.
we also need to say that the cartoon is not actually canon.
No, not at all. Like, Lydia and Beetlejuice are friends in the cartoon.
Yeah, it's very whimsical. And Beetlejuice is very like, teehee, my like cool imaginary friend. Yeah.
I feel that's where the sandworm love, like, it kind of comes from, and people just lump it in with the movie. But I like the sandworms, what we see of them in the movie. Like, this is
me too. I always picture Reba about to like haul out an elephant gun and start firing at them and go magazine and like have her like AK-47. Because I always think sandworms, and I'm like, okay, this literally just jumped out of Tremors.
Yeah.
Like, wait, Tremors was 87, right? I feel like it was like the year before this. And they were obviously both, influenced by Dune.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Not the book, the David Lynch film, the David
Tremors
Lynch masterpiece.
Is 1990.
Okay, never mind.
There you go. And the only other real big thing that we hadn't hit, that I can't believe we hadn't hit, is talking about the bureaucracy of the dead. Like that, just all the scenes.
I have so many notes
in the government of the dead.
Yeah.
All right. Let me quickly say that I wouldn't want these sandworms, to be a popcorn bucket. That's all. So I prefer the Dune sandworms.
But see, because these sandworms have the big old tongue, so that wouldn't work.
Yeah, exactly. That's the reason. Anyways, go on with the bureaucracy of the dead.
Okay, so first of all, I'm like, this is so fucking Kafka-esque. I feel like there was like a period in like the late 80s to mid 90s when like comparing things to Kafka was like in vogue. And I think that this is the one thing that never got compared to Kafka that actually is very much like Kafka, because it's like this nightmare of bureaucracy and it's like surreal and literally another world.
And this is like Tim Burton, this is like top Tim Burton to me. It's just like this whole
100%.
The design, the character designs, like you can tell how they all died. It's all like funny, like the guy that's smoking, that's just like ashes of his body, and then obviously the shrunken head guy was like super iconic.
Oh, iconic. I mean, clearly Colton posted that in the group chat today. Yeah. But I also have to say, one of my notes, and like I honestly didn't notice this until, like, I've seen this 500 times. I didn't notice this until whenever it was, like 6 or 7 months ago when I watched it with my friend. Because I hadn't, like, I watched this as a child hundreds of times, but then, like, in my 20s, I don't think I watched it, like, maybe once. But there's a point where they say, I can't remember who it is, I think it's Otho says that people who commit suicide or people who kill themselves are punished by being public servants.
Yeah.
And then when you look at all of the people that work in the afterlife, there's never any reference made to how they died, but literally, like, Juno has a slash across her throat, so she clearly, like, cut her own throat, and everybody has, like, slits on their wrists and stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, I never noticed until last year how every person, there's somebody who is going around on the thing with, like, by his noose, right? It's like, oh my god, everybody who is part of the afterlife, like, bureaucracy clearly killed themselves. Like, it's just wild. It's this, like, little tiny detail that, like, as a kid, I never picked up on. And again, that's why, like, this fucking bullshit, like, don't let your children watch these movies. Like, I never picked up on this shit until I was, like, literally a million years old.
So the flat guy, does that mean he jumped off the building and like pancaked himself?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I'm not gonna lie, like there have been days when I've said I'm gonna go walk out into traffic, and maybe he walked out into traffic.
Maybe, who knows?
We don't know his story. Maybe like his story got cut out.
I love like all the workers. Obviously Juno I think's like super funny. Like she's great.
She's actually like low key one of the best parts of this movie.
Yeah, I think she's awesome. I like even the background characters. Like you can see like skeletons typing and like anyone that's had like any sort of like office or like government job or anything like that. Like, I feel like
also,
that's how you
shout
feel.
Out to the I don't know if you guys have seen like any of the German expressionist films. Anybody seen The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari?
No.
Okay, anyway.
It's on my watch list. I've never seen it.
Yeah. Okay, so the whole, like, all the sets of the, like, afterlife clinic area, whatever you want to call it, they're all very German expressionist. It's very Dr. Caligari, and I just thought that was, like, such a cool touch. It's very morbid. You know, it's very much like Tim Burton kind of like nodding to his influences, because all the German expressionist films and paintings and shit are like very dark, you know, and like morbid and kind of absurd. So yeah, it's very Kafka. And
yeah, I was still very much entertained and like into the movie like at this point, and I thought the set design was, you know, like what Mike's referencing, like kind of like the twisted hallways and the skewed doors.
It's all very
all
skewed angles. Everything's like kind of off and like, you know, tilting
like the
to the
checkered
side
floors
and
striped stuff. It was, you know, once again, it felt very Tim Burton to me. But of course, I understand.
And Tim
that
Burton
this was
is very
first,
like obviously influenced by expressionism.
Yeah, probably the first time he did it on quite this scale, and also just the numerous different kind of like patrons of the afterlife, all the different costumes and prosthetic effects and all this stuff. Like I did think it was a lot of fun, and the whole like, you know, a waiting room gag of taking a number and it being like, you know, serving 5 million and whatever, you know, like. It's fun, you know. It's a good little scene.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like we could go on about this film all day, or at least me and Mike could.
Maybe you could.
But you know what? Maybe are you guys comfortable going in the rating? And we'll save it for Colton's favorite episode, which will be Beetlejuice Part 2 coming.
Well, you know, you're going to have to do a now slaying on that.
Well, you know, I haven't given my score yet, but I think for Beetlejuice 2 or Beetlejuice, I think I'll just be too busy that time of the year. So I don't know. Maybe you and Jill do it. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm going to have to send Colton a Cineplex gift card and be like, you need to go see this.
You got to go see Beetlejuice
whenever you have 2 free hours. I'm paying for you to go see this movie.
I mean, obviously I would go see it, but it's just, that time of the year I'm going to be slammed the beginning of September, but yeah, we'll see.
So, let's land the plane and get into rating this. If you're new to our program, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, or slay. Mike, I'm going to start with you because I don't want to get depressed right away. So, Mike, what would you give 1988's Beetlejuice?
Okay, I'm going to give it, and this is a very personal rating, a slay.
Wow,
because
I'm
shocked. I know. I've just been like blowing my fucking load all over this movie for the last hour and a half. No, I do like, I think that like on a subjective level, it's a slay, obviously, but also on an objective level, it has a lot of merits. I feel like it's the seed of a lot of Tim Burton's best shall we say, like obsessions or like the motifs that will repeat themselves throughout his career, but especially because this was like right before his, I'm going to call it like his 90s like kind of heyday, because that was kind of like peak Tim Burton. That was when he did like a lot of his, you know, like really iconic films, and, you know, when he was at his like kind of commercial and critical best. And I feel like a lot of that is present in this film, like, but in like kind of a slightly, like, I'm not saying this is an indie movie, but I'm saying like compared to like the budgets of say his like things 10 years later, this seems like more of like indie versions of, you know, like kind of lower budget versions of like what would be to come in his career. And I really like, I love everything about this movie. I love the casting, except for like, you know, whatever, like the cast is great. We're not going to talk about what happened afterwards. That's fine. The score is great. I feel like there were so many like moments in it, like quotes that were iconic for like 10, 15 years. Like the pop culture songs that it used, like the Harry Belafonte, you know, kind of like a lot of people now, there's like whole generations that like literally will only think of this movie when they hear this song. And I think that it's only probably once every 10 years that a movie comes along that like completely changes people's perceptions of these like really famous songs. And I just think that like in general, part of the reason that I love it is because it's so charming, because it takes this like absolute horror trope that has been around for centuries of the haunted house and inverts it, because it gives you the other side. Like, you are looking at the haunted house from the perspective of the fucking people who are haunting it. And I think that's like why it's so good and so funny, because it's like, it's not, oh, the scariness of the unknown, like what's in the house, what's haunting it, like who died here, you know, like, you know, all that like right from the get-go. The whole gag is like, oh my God, these fucking tired ass fucking New York bitches who think they're better than everybody. You know what I mean? And I just love that they inverted or like just flipped the haunted house trope on its head, because like I can't think of anything before that that like took that perspective of that trope. And I feel like it hasn't even been done very much since, because it's just like, it's so hard. How do you follow up Beetlejuice? It's like the perfect way to like take the other side of the mirror. You know what I mean? Like the haunted house mirror. You're on the other side of it for once. And it's like, I feel like it's so hard to ever do that again. So I feel like it slays because it does that in a way that nobody ever did it before. And it kind of ruins it so that nobody can ever do it again. So I don't know. That's just me. Colton, thoughts, please.
I love that you give it a slay. For me, like, obviously this movie is wildly inventive, of course. It has solid practical effects, especially for its time period. And, you know, this kind of quirky, morbid tone that Tim Burton used throughout the rest of his filmography. So for me, when I was watching it as like, I don't know, probably like my 15th Tim Burton movie I've seen, it just felt a little bit trite after a certain point. I understand for like a lot of people, this is like a formative movie. But for me, there just wasn't a whole lot here that I hadn't seen before in the other numerous Tim Burton movies. And then when people kind of say like, oh, this is a great gateway into horror, I'm a 31-year-old dude. I don't need a gateway into horror anymore. I'm already there. So I didn't really get that out of it either. I will say, obviously, like, some of the performances we've discussed were impressive. You know, the set design is great. A lot of the style is there that I enjoy it, but it's just, for me, after a certain point, it starts feeling less like a narrative film and more like a stylistic exercise. So I'll give it an okay. It's a strong okay. I was teetering on a yay, but honestly, I just have to be honest, like the last half of the movie for me, I was just very bored. It was the sort of thing where I felt myself starting to doze off a bit, so I had to like sit up straight, like readjust myself on the couch and just make sure that I was going to stay awake for the whole thing. So yeah, it's like, maybe that's a testament to the week I've had, you know, getting ready to go back to work and just, you know, being apprehensive of that. But it just, a lot of it I just felt like I've seen before. And also, as we've said, certain aspects of this movie are so iconic that it's like, this wasn't the first time I've ever seen Beetlejuice, you know, for example, like him on screen, you know? So yeah, it's an okay for me. Rowan, go ahead and slay it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm giving it a slay. Like I said, I don't know if there's many movies I've watched more than this. And you know what? A movie's got to be good when, like, Exilia's seen this 800 times and, like, she even starts paying attention when it's on and she's doing something else, because...
Usually, Exilia is, like, hits play on a movie, and she is, to quote Colton in the group chat earlier, NyQuil and gone. You could put on the best movie ever, and I say this with love, and she's like asleep within 10 minutes.
But I mean, I love everything from the music to the performances to the cast. I mean, I don't know if we could ever give enough time, and we didn't give enough time for Otho, who is just like awesome. He's another one of like the best characters in this
the entire movie.
Oh my god, I love Otho. Just fantastic performances all around. I mean, I'm saying things that have been said about this film so many times. So obviously, yeah, I'll keep it short. Slay all day. So yeah, 2 slays and okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we told you what we thought of the film, and we asked you, and we had quite a few people right. So I got them open here. I'll start on Facebook. Claire wrote and said, constant forever slay. So, Claire, you're on the right side of history. Congratulations. G.Y. Lee or Guy Lee says slay in capital letters. Also, thank you for siding with us. We're really building up our side. We're mounting the war.
I just like it that you have to personally thank everyone for their Beetlejuice takes that align with your own.
Thank you for agreeing with me.
Melanie St. George wrote and said on Instagram and said, it's a 10 out of 10. Probably my favorite 80s movie.
Oh, God.
Love it so much.
I just feel like all the hate mail coming my way now.
Beloved Horror Hound Holly P wrote in and said, a fever dream. Plot might have been better if I watched when young. Loved the set design.
Yes. Holly has like such good taste. Oh, also, I need to throw out right now, just while we're here, whoever it was that wrote us about the book. And if you're listening, you know what I'm talking about, because they said, who did somebody on the podcast recommend this book because it was disgusting?
Oh, yes.
None of us read it, but I actually know 2 people that did read it, and they said they got to page 41 and also had to stop. So I don't know who it was, because I only saw the like screen cap of it, but like know that everybody I know that read that book could not get past page 41.
Yeah, I can't even remember her name now who asked me to investigate that. But yeah, I mean, I did a thorough investigation, screen caps.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out because it just dawned on me, and I was like, oh my God, I was talking to people about this at work yesterday. So yeah.
Yeah, that was Michelle J who messaged us.
Oh yeah, Michelle. Yeah. I know one person who finished the book, but it took her a month, and another person who got to the same page as you did and stopped reading it. And I asked the person who finished the book, can you please explain to me what this page is that nobody can get past? And she told me, and I almost vomited. So yeah, God. I totally understand.
Yikes.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we had Cecily write in and said, shaped me as a person, honestly.
Queen.
So yeah, lots of love for Beetlejuice. I think probably what we expected. And with that, before we get over to the hotline, we did have some questions come in. We had quite a few questions come in.
Oh, really? All right.
So we'll start with Melanie St. George wrote and wanted to know, are we excited for the sequel, which I feel we kind of touched on.
We touched on a little bit, yeah.
The episode. I'm apprehensive, I know myself. I'm a little worried. I think we've talked about many times that Tim Burton hasn't really done it for us for a long time. So if he can kind of go back, harness that 80s energy, I don't know if he's going to...
I feel like there's been people, a lot of like auteurs who have kind of like slipped and then had late career renaissances. And yeah. I'm trying to be positive that this could be Tim Burton's like late period rejuvenation, shall we say.
Yeah, just kind of scrubbing through the trailer. It looks a little bit more modern Tim Burton to me, like a lot of the camera work and kind of like the hyper saturation and whatnot. Like it looks a little bit more modern, but there is some like miniature stuff in here, and obviously Michael Keaton and whatnot. So I don't know. That's the thing. I obviously heard I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's definitely something I'll check out eventually when I get the time to do so. And I mean, it
also
doesn't look...
the casting of Jenna Ortega is
so
like it's somehow insane. It's perfect and expected and insane.
Yeah, it's great casting, but I will say she also has a really bad agent, so it's not really, reflective of if the script is great or if the movie's going to be great, because she's been in some stinkers over the past couple of years as well. So, well, I don't know. I feel like the jury's out. I think nothing that I see in this trailer scrubbing through is like let's sound the alarm. Like it's, worrisome, I don't think.
And then we had, Jill did write in a question that's separate from her response.
She can't be on the show.
Jill, you don't get to send us questions.
Well, I'm thinking like she's not on the show, but now she has to grind the whole show to a halt to talk about Theme again, So let's see.
Of course. Jill's going to grind it to a halt even when she's fucking at WrestleMania.
So she said, I want Mike's opinion on how much of a fucking queen Miss Argentina is.
I fucking love Miss Argentina. I'm obsessed. Also, I need to know everything about her. I want to see her I want to see the broadcast on VHS with the squiggly lines of her answering questions on the stage. Yeah, she's a total queen. I'm obsessed. I actually have 2 notes about her. I'm like, I need to know everything about this woman.
Yeah, she was
and her voice
fantastic.
And her wig, her skin, everything about her is she's serving cunt. She's a cuntress. Yeah.
Holly P had a question, which is, what's your favorite horror book? Trying to get into more horror literature.
That is a extremely good question.
You know what? I've got 2 answers for you. So my first, I'll do an obvious answer and then a less obvious answer. My obvious answer is I'm a big fan of Gerald's Game, Stephen King. It's probably one of my favorite Stephen King novels. Mm-hmm. I just really, really enjoy that. And then I feel like it's pretty popular, but maybe not so popular, is David Moody's Hater. I'm a big David Moody guy. I own all his books. Yeah, fantastic. Unfortunately, Hater never became a movie. I know Del Toro bought the rights to it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know they were gonna do it at some point.
Never did anything, but it's a great zombie. I mean, I don't even know what it is now. I think there's 5 or 6 books. Maybe more now in the series, but each book is written from a different perspective, whether that's a zombie or, a uninfected human or whatever. And yeah, that's one of my all-time favorite reads and novels.
Okay, so I have a couple. I have one of my old school ones from a million years ago that formed me as a human, and then a new one that I recommend to everybody. So the newer, more contemporary one, which I know I've brought up here numerous times, is Red X by David Demchuk. Amazing, one of the best contemporary horror novels you will read.
From Toronto.
From Toronto, yep, and currently lives here, so period, local. But one that probably I think is not only one of the best horror books you'll ever read of all time, but is personally in my DNA because it was so influential, would be especially volumes 1 to 3, but any of the 6 of them. You can get 2 omnibus editions of Clive Barker's Books of Blood. So you've got 1 to 3 in one edition and 4 to 6 in the other. They're both absolutely amazing, but 1 to 3, I just to me is a really good gateway. If you're trying to get into it, because there's some really iconic short stories in there. There's at least 2 or 3 that have been turned into movies. But also it's really good. I think that horror is one of the genres that really thrives on short fiction, because it's really horror is just really good at having having these little bite size. You have one moment or this one small concept and you can execute it in 15 to 20 pages. And I just feel like horror short stories are really good. It's a really good way to kind of whet your appetite. And if you don't want to get into okay. And another one is Stephen King's It. Love it, but it's
fantastic.
1,200 pages. And it's fine if you don't want to read that. But I feel Clive Barker's Books of Blood is so good because it's you can literally pick through it and there's 20, 25 page stories and they're all brilliant. And it's just you can put it down and yeah, it's literally little crystals, little jewels. Colton, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I've read anything substantive. Like, I had to, like, do a whole password reset as you guys were recommending things for Goodreads to get in here and even see, like, what did I rate positively, like, in horror? I'm kind of bouncing off of what Mike said. I read a short story collection called North American Lake Monsters by Nathan Ballingrud, and it's not actually lake monsters. It's just a series of, like, you know, short stories and novellas and whatnot. And I thought that was excellent. I read it at a time when I was having, like, issues reading it all. Apparently, I read it in 2020. So it was probably, like, during lockdown or something. And I was like, you know what? Let's find something to, like, occupy my mind a little bit. And I thought it was, you know, I was struggling reading, similar to kind of what Holly was saying. And that kind of, like, roped me back in, where I felt like I was making progress and actually finishing something, like, every time I'd sit down to read, because everything was like 20 to 30 pages or something, right? And you get a full story. I don't know what other Holly's, like, kind of reading habits are, or, like, what she enjoys, but I also, like, a lesser known kind of, like, vampire, you know, horror novel that I really liked was Fever Dream. That's by George R.R. Martin, so it's literally, like, vampires on a steamboat.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
Isn't it, like, spelled weird, like F-E-A, like
F-E-V-R-E, Dream. Yeah, because it's the name of the steamboat that they're, like, going down the river. And essentially, it's a vampire work, but it has, like, a lot of, like, interesting, you know, details in it, obviously, because it's written by George R.R. Martin, and, you know, he's all about, like, subverting expectations and whatnot. And I remember at the time going in, I knew it was a vampire novel, but I didn't really realize where it was going. And that was probably shortly after I finished reading Game of Thrones. So I just loved the guy's prose and stuff at the time. So I thought that was great. And then obviously I'll shout out, you know, Mike mentioned It. I really liked The Shining when I read it, you know, and that's a very easy read. Once again, I think I read it at a time when I was struggling with kind of finishing anything, and, you know, Stephen King's
And there's
prose.
a reason why it's, like, one of those books that, like, it's like a gateway, because it's compulsively readable, but also, like, surprisingly literate.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, Stephen
yeah.
King's prose, like, a lot of people kind of dunk on him because it's so simplistic, but there's also, like, a beauty in, like, how simple it is and how easy to read it is, right? Like, I'm sure he can write more flowery passages if he wanted to, but he wants you to basically pick it up and, like, get through it, like, get to the horror, get to all the scares, and get what he's saying. So there is something, like, admirable about his prose anyways, but also, just as someone who's a huge fan of The Shining, there's enough different, obviously, in the novel compared to, like, you know, the movie, Kubrick's adaptation, that it's, like, you know, it's still interesting as someone who's a fan of that movie.
Yeah, you can still really enjoy, if you've watched the movie, like, 20 times and never read the book, you can still really enjoy the book and be surprised by it.
Yeah, but if you're just struggling reading it all and getting into things, my main one is probably just North American Lake Monsters. I think is a kind of an underrated good collection of, like, short stories, and, you know, it's not about lake monsters explicitly.
I honestly think you're right, and short fiction is sort of if you're struggling and just, like, because, like, I don't know, I find, like, the last 4 years, like, my attention span is just really bad, and maybe it's, like, ADHD, but also, like, I just feel like we're all kind of, like, a bit traumatized and find it really hard to, like, dedicate an extended period of time to things like we used to.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like short fiction is really, like I've been such a fan of short stories since I was, you know, young, but, like, I feel like short horror fiction is definitely kind of, like, the way to go if you're trying to, like, get your sea legs back, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we have one more question. This is a fun one. I'm excited for this question. Cecily sent in a question that said, if you had a dinner party, what song would you want to be possessed and forced to dance to?
So I have a little bit of a funny answer for this, I guess. I don't know if everyone on the show knows, and our listeners certainly don't know. In high school, I wound up being, like, accidentally enrolled in Partners Ballet. And at the time, I was single. So there was no, like, partner to be had other than, you know, whoever they paired me up with. And I remember I had to do, like, a very slow, moody, interpretive dance to the Beatles' Let It Be.
This is fantastic.
So I think if I was possessed, that's probably the only way I would ever bust out those moves again. I remember, like, literally having to be, like, curled up on the floor as a ball and kind of exploding upwards. And yeah, it was a pretty embarrassing routine. I mean, outside of that, there was, like, a few, like, Great Big Sea songs that we danced to, of course, because we're here in Newfoundland and Labrador. But yeah, the Beatles' Let It Be It doesn't really set the vibe, but all eyes would be on me, I think, at the dance party, and you know, it'd be
not all eyes on you with a Z. Yeah. Tupac.
Yeah, no. So yeah, that's what I'm going with, just because I can't think of a fun answer, and it's, you know, reveals a little bit of personal history.
Okay, so I would say I have lots of answers to this.
Macarena is what he's going with, you know.
I actually could do, because I'm very good at Macarena. Thank you very much. But if I were to pick one song, it would probably be the Ronettes' Be My Baby. If I'm thinking of like, because obviously Cecily is, you know, envisioning the final scene of this movie, you know, with Winona levitating, and it's very like kind of a little bit whimsical, but also a little bit scary, but also a little bit like kind of cool and supernatural. And I feel like the Ronettes' Be My Baby is whimsical and cool and scary and lovely. And I feel like if you wanted to just do the straight up, literally me lip syncing to it, that would work. If it was like some creepy, weird, like modern slowed and reverb cover, that would also work, or like a sped up version. So I just feel like the Ronettes' Be My Baby would be a cool I'm getting possessed at the dinner party lip sync song. Ro, come on, lay it on us. I know you got something good. I want it to be Tupac. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's not going to be Tupac. You know what? I'm going to go with something kind of, I think, in that Beetlejuice universe. Mine would be Mess Around by Ray Charles.
Okay, interesting.
I think that would fit the vibe. If it had to be something like that's not on a Beetlejuice vibe, maybe something like Stardust. Music Sounds Better With You.
Okay, Lady by Mojo would also be one of mine. So, I'd be like in the air going like, lady. Anyway.
There's some answers for you, Cecily. With that, let's get over. I think we got 2 voicemails for the horrific hotline.
Hey guys, this is Jill. So sorry I couldn't make the Beetlejuice episode, but I'm out here being a giant dirtbag at WrestleMania this weekend. So I'll catch you guys on the next episode, and hope you guys enjoyed this one. Now, I'm not there to talk about what constitutes being a ghoul, and I'm happy to miss that conversation.
We skipped it.
I definitely
Let's bring
think
it back
Beetlejuice is one of the better known ghouls and ghoul movies. Now, before I talk about how I feel about the movie, I need to ask an important question.
About the theme.
Did the gang give Colton enough shit for never seeing Beetlejuice before? I certainly hope so. If not, let's publicly shame Colton together. So shame on you, Colton.
I mean,
shame.
Shame.
All right, now that's out of the way. First experiences with the movie. I can't recall the very first time I've watched this, but I've seen it a million times over the years, especially as a child, and I seem to remember an animated Beetlejuice series that ran in the 90s that I also watched. And I have this one on DVD with a bunch of other Tim Burton movies. Big shocker there. This isn't my favorite Tim Burton movie, though. It actually ranks pretty low on my Tim Burton list.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, Jill, divorce.
As a staple of my childhood and as an iconic movie because it's done so many things outside of the box. The cast is great. Love Catherine O'Hara, Winona Ryder, and Michael Keaton, of course. I think the concept is really original and fun. The effects are unique. Where this one loses me is the execution of the plot. It doesn't seem to be perfectly cohesive, but I'll overlook that because of all the other things this movie does right. It's interesting watching this in 2024 with how raunchy the Beetlejuice character is, especially taking a child bride and the multiple suicide references and jokes. Yikes. But still, it's fun and darkly funny, so I'm gonna give this a yay. Can't beat Edward Scissorhands. Have a good episode, guys.
Ew, ugh.
So
well, I mean, I was like divorcing, and then I was like, oh wait, Jill loves Johnny Depp. I forgot.
So I'm happy to hear that she believes this is like, kind of mid Tim Burton as well, because obviously I agree with her there. But also I'm kind of upset that when Jill calls in, we get this like nice put together, some good coherent thoughts, and when she's on the show she's zoned out, Jill. Can't answer a direct question,
stoned ass Jill,
and rambling on for 5 minutes about werewolf dick or something. It's just like, it was so nice,
foreskin
so nice to hear Jill like this.
Well, maybe she'll be able to do that more often now that I'm banishing her from the show for saying anything negative about Beetlejuice. So, sorry, Jill. It was fun while it lasted, though.
And with that, I guess we'll get to, I think, Nicholas's voicemail, right? Like, that's the only other person it could be. Yeah.
Hot take in some circles, but Beetlejuice is my favorite Tim Burton movie. I really love it. I have loved it since I was a child. It's up there with Gremlins as those childhood, not
right,
teenage, but childhood horror movies that I love and watch regularly. And yeah, I think the story is very entertaining, a bit morbid. It does get a bit dark in certain places, but it's always entertaining. There's always a joke, even though some don't really land as well today. Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice is just this annoying and nasty little fella, and I really like watching him like all the time he's in the movie. It's perfect. That being said, also the other characters, so Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin as the recently deceased couple is great, and the new couple or the couple moving into their home and their daughter. It's full of cool characters that not cool, but characters that you really like to watch. Great ideas with the handbook and the bureaucracy in the realm of the recently deceased. Some great ideas. The effects are mostly sketchy at best, but it makes the movie, for me, to a certain extent, lends it some of this 80s charm. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm going to slay the movie.
Yes.
Maybe that's nostalgia for me, but I enjoyed. It's a short watch with 90 minutes or something like that, that you can put on in the background or show to friends. Always a great time, at least for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this one as well. And let me know, what are your thoughts on the upcoming sequel? Like, are you excited for that? Or is it maybe something where you're saying like, well, that's not really necessary? Have a good one.
Well, if you made it this far, you've heard our thoughts on the upcoming sequel. But I like that you call Beetlejuice this little guy. Just and it seems like he aligned with you guys. And
thanks for being on the right side of history. Look out for the new It Slays podcast t-shirts that just say, I stand with Nicholas.
New on Patreon.
That would be pretty good, honestly. And if you want to send in a voicemail like Nicholas or, Jill when you're being a dirtbag at WrestleMania, you can do so by sending it to us at It Slays Podcast on any of our social medias or itslayspodcast@gmail.com. Basically, if you get us an MP3, we'll make sure that it makes the air for us all to listen and react to. And if you're not following us on our socials at It Slays Podcast, you can do so on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Slasher, Letterboxd, Threads, Bluesky. I don't know why I stumbled over saying Letterboxd. That's by far my most, active social media. You can follow us there at It Slays Podcast. And if you want to help support the show, like our horror hounds, Holly, Nicholas, Patrick, Mark, Stephen, Joy, Carvey, Dan, Brian, Trevor, and Genesis, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams, hosted by Jill, and get episodes of this here main show 48 hours early. Be sure to head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. Rowan, is Jumping the Line already on the playlist? Is it making the playlist there?
I think Jumping the Line and Deo are both on the list already. The thing I don't think I have on it yet is the Beetlejuice theme song.
I think that's hard to find on there. I've tried to use it for our stories before. Yeah, but anyways.
So step it up, Spotify, so we can add it on the playlist. But go to the It Slays Podcast Horrific playlist on Spotify. If you have any problems finding it, You can go to any of the social media that Colton just mentioned, go into the bio, click the Linktree link, and it'll take you directly to it. We upload scores or licensed music from iconic horror movies we review, or just horror movies we love. So go follow the playlist and get your spooky music on, because why the hell not? And you know what? As the humble host, and I like to think a gracious leader, sometimes you just got to know when to step out of the way and let Colton cook. And I think that's the only thing I can do with announcing the upcoming episode. So,
well, our next episode is, it's a big one. We had some great picks in the group chat. We had Pumpkinhead. We had, Frankenstein. We had The Blob, which Mike was riding for. He was basically ready to quit if we didn't do The Blob. And, of course, we had Troll 1 from 1986, which I'm not going to say who put that in there, but, one of us did. Anyways, we left it up to chance. I literally screen recorded just so there'd be no...
We did not leave it up to chance. You left it up to chance. But
well, we couldn't come to a consensus. It wasn't unanimous. So we said, all right, well, we'll put it in, the hands of fate. And, we spun the roulette wheel, and Troll 1, Troll from 1986, starring apparently a guy named Harry Potter, is what we'll be reviewing next time on the show. So it's going to be a ghoulish good time. I'm confident in that, at least,
And we're using the word reviewing very loosely here.
Well, Mike will be ranting for sure, and we'll see how the rest of us feel about it.
When you go to Patreon, pick your I Stand With Nicholas shirts up. You can also pick up picket signs that just say "Stop the Steal."
Yep, stop the steal, stop the steal. Go to my Twitter and we'll start talking about it. I'm about to start rallying.
To be fair, I also don't know if the Blob is really a ghoul. The vibe would probably be right, for the Blob.
Girl,
but
we're not even going to start. I had 2 suggestions. We're not going to start this.
Anyways, next time on the show it'll be Troll from 1986.
So get that in your eye holes for next episode, and we will be back with Jill. How that works out that you miss Beetlejuice but make it in time to see Troll, I don't really know, but good for her. But thank you as always for the support. We'll be back. I am your humble host, Rowan.
Bye, it's Mike.
And I'm Colton.
And remember, I'll eat anything you want me to eat. I'll swallow anything you want me to swallow. So come on down now. Chew on a dog. Oh!